2020 discussion board, discussion school board meeting order. Please rise for the allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Anderson. Here. Mr. Caligiuri.
Here.
Mr. Colson.
Here.
Mr. Devine.
Here.
Mr. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Kolar.
Oh,
Who's calling in?
that's on me. That's my mistake. Virtual.
So Mr. Kolar will be teleconferencing him.
Yes.
Mrs. Stepnick.
Here.
Mr. Tomarello.
Present.
Ms. Wetmore.
Here.
Ms. Zero.
Here.
Dan here? It's okay. Good.
I left the computer.
I wanted it that way. Tell them to call in. Now it's on him. I didn't know I was supposed to do it. Mr. Kolar, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, the board met in executive session on January 14th, 2020 to discuss matters of litigation, safety, personnel, and real estate. This time, I'd like to open the floor to citizens' comments on agenda items. All right, Personnel Committee, Mr. Caligiuri.
Nothing to present.
We have a presentation on balanced scorecard presentation.
Okay, I'll start that one off. About approximately almost a year and a half ago, when I took over as superintendent, one of the things that I had put in my entry plan into the district that was approved by the board was the notion that we were going to, number one, come up with a plan, number two, set goals, and number three, measure those goals to make sure that we were moving in a positive direction. The challenge that I was given was to try and do my very best to help lead this district and make it into one of the best districts in the state of Pennsylvania. And so in order to do that, I'm a big believer in if you set high expectations and you strive to meet those expectations, you're going to achieve. If you set low expectations, you're probably going to get results that are commensurate with those low expectations. And so we came up with the concept, well, we didn't, we copied the concept of the balanced scorecard, which is often used in businesses, used in other educational organizations as well. And one of the things that we wanted to do was put our goals out there for the entire community to see. But more importantly, once those goals were established, we put a baseline out there and we set goals until the year 2023. And so we have this out on our website, and once we review the results with you folks, we are going to put the results out there so the entire community can see all the good things, all the bad things, all the areas where we're trending in a good direction, the areas maybe where we need to do some improvement. But basically, share with the community and be as transparent as we possibly can about the direction and the results that this district is achieving or not achieving. So, as you have seen it all over the district, we have 6 goals. And those goals are reflected in that balanced scorecard. And so tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to have representatives present each one of those goals, and we have split up into teams, and this is a team approach from an administrative standpoint. Each administrator not only has responsibilities at a building level or their own specific department, they also have responsibilities that are systemic as well. And those systemic goals help them be able to see how what they're doing impacts other parts of the district. And so the balanced scorecard is going to be presented to you tonight. There is really nothing that you have to vote on here, so it won't be in the action meeting. It's just, we're letting you know where we stand, okay? I will say this, and I had discussions with former board members about this, and some that are currently on the board, about the goals that we set. And we were very, very aggressive in the goals that we set. When I first came to this district, I felt as though that we needed that. I felt we needed to set the bar as high as we possibly could, knowing that if we don't meet those goals, it's probably not going to look as good for the administration. But at the end of the day, it's going to be what's best for our students. And so those goals are extremely lofty goals. And, but so be it. And we're going to strive to try and meet those goals. And tonight we're going to let you know where we stand. So the first goal is keeping our school safe. And Dr. Walsh was challenged with that particular position. And so I'm going to turn it over to him to go through our key performance indicators, which are down the left-hand side. If you notice, goal number 1, you'll see it's 1.1, 1.2, and it works its way all the way down until we go through all the key performance indicators.
I would just, first of all, thank you, Dr. Holly. Before I go over our keeping our schools safe, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all the administrators that are sitting over behind the board, from athletics to facilities to transportation, all of the building administrators, pupil services, our faculty, and our staff. If you look at our number 1 goal of keeping our schools safe, I believe there's been significant increases in regards to the perceptions of our students and our community. For instance, goal number 1 was, do our students feel prepared in an event of a crisis at school? If you look at last year, and what stuck out last year to us was the high school, that 58% of the kids did not feel comfortable in regards to if something happened at school. If you look at this year, the high school was at 3 out of 4 kids, so it's projecting in a positive direction. And as a district, it was 84.3% of our students felt they feel better prepared. So we did meet that goal. 1.2, based on the student survey, do they agree or strongly agree about feeling safe at school? And that goes along with pupil services, the environment we want to create, feeling comfortable talking to adults. And we did meet that goal, a significant increase from 79% to 87%. Goal 1.3 was not a perception. It was taking a close look at the actual drills that were completed in 2018. And there were 58 drills that were completed that year. Last year we completed 110. Part of that is there's some required drills that we're required to do. Fire drills, bus evacuation, but we're also required to do drills over the summer because our students are in the buildings over the summer, so we are practicing drills in June and July and August year-round. And we did build out a drill sequence which focuses our attention, gives dates and timelines, and I would account for that to be the reason for the significant increase. Our parents, what are they saying? Do they agree or strongly agree that their child feels well prepared in the event of a crisis in school? Last year, or in 2018, it was 77%. As a district, it was 80.6%. Significant increases across the board. And the last goal, 1.5. Does their child feel safe at school? As a district,
78% in 2018. Last year, that was up to 93.5%. So we're already closing in on some of our goals that we set forth for the 2023 school year. So in regards to keeping our schools safe, we are moving in the right direction. I think Officer Nesloff standing over in the corner of the libraries is a perfect example of that. Our parents see the security, our kids are going through the drills, and everybody is aware of the expectations in regards to when things aren't going according to plan.
And so for those board members that are new, this survey is given at the end of each school year. It's given to those students who are in 4th grade, the students who are in 6th grade, the students who are in 8th grade, and the seniors. And then it's pushed out to every single parent. We had originally done the students at that exit level. We also tried their parents. The end that we were getting for that was just not enough, so we put it out for every single parent. Last year, I think we had 935 respondents to the survey, which is I think pretty good. The more respondents, I think once people see that we take the kids' data very, very seriously, I think more and more people will respond to it. As an example, the reason that we have Chromebooks is because we asked the kids in that survey, would you rather have iPads with keyboards, or Chromebooks? And they overwhelmingly said they wanted Chromebooks. So we use that data, and it's going to help drive some of the decisions that we make. But one thing that you should know is that when you give a survey, it's a snapshot in time. You could have, so let's say we have a really horrible school shooting someplace at the time that we give the survey. That may impact our results. So we look at this over, we've only done it 2 years. So we look over it over the long term. We're looking for trends to see if we're moving in the right direction.
Do teachers take the survey as well?
Anyone that is in the district, is a parent in the district, will have access to it. Our eventual goal is, under cultivating first-rate workforce, is to be able to survey all our employees. So right now, we're managing this right now, but we're moving towards that direction because we do want to get their input.
Well, I feel like their input would be a big piece in making sure that if we make changes, suggestions, or they take they're part of the conversation with the students and the parents. I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't, after 2 years, include them.
Yeah, there's no question, but there are other avenues for them to give their input. So like after in services, they get their opportunity to give feedback. Look at the teachers that are here tonight. They're here because they want to have an impact on the math curriculum that they're going to teach, and they're part of vertical teams which had not been in place before. We also have a school board representative as a student to speak for the students as well. So we're trying to get their voice. And I think by those teachers being here tonight, by the way, thank you for coming, math teachers. I think there are more ways than just getting survey data, but I do think that's one of the goals that we should strive for. Okay, goal number 2. Raise levels of student achievement and academic rigor, and we're going to turn that over to Mrs. Sedlak and Dr. Walsh.
Okay, I'm going to start.
And they may push out to their building principals.
Yeah. Ms. Sedlak and I share this goal with other administrators in the district. Once again, goal number 2.1 and 2.2. Goal 2.1 is about reducing the number of non-proficient students and raising the growth in under 2.2. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our district assessment team, which was Mr. Loletta, Mrs. Fight, Dr. Rainier Hershey, Ms. Gibson, and Ms. Iera, and working within our department leaders also. A lot of the initiatives we pushed out were specific to address the students that were not meeting targeted goals and to increase growth. Some of our recommendations you'll hear later, for instance, in our Math Pathways presentation. So 2.1 was to reduce the number of students that were non-proficient. And this goal is broken down by buildings. And the hyperlink at the top takes you to the PDE Future Ready Index proficiency data that is public information for community members to see. And you can see at the high school, our ELA, we were almost there, but we still have some work to do in ELA, in math and algebra. in science and biology. At O Block, there were some signs in ELA that there's still opportunities for some improvement in the areas of math and algebra. We did not meet the goal, but it's moving in the right direction.
Hey, Dr. Walsh, can I stop you for a second? I want to make sure that the board has access to
I'm
this.
sharing them right now.
You're
I'm
sharing
them right
it?
now.
Okay.
You are? Okay.
It would be helpful for the board to actually see that information. But it's on the screen as well.
Okay.
Look, I wear cheaters for this, I can't see that.
All right, hurry up, Mrs.
Science and biology, we did, at O Block, they did meet the goal, and it was moving in the positive direction. I will say for Holiday Park, in all fairness, the rigor of our assessments and the data that's collected, I don't think there's a more difficult years in which you see a drop-off across the state, and that's in grades 5 and 6, in regards to the students that are not meeting standards. So this is not unique to Plum when you look at the percentages. In the area of ELA and math, we did not meet our goals. In the area of math, which we'll talk about later, we were moving in a negative direction. Pivot, I know Mrs. Gestrich is very proud of this, that they did meet all their goals across the board, and they were moving in a positive direction. And Mr. Nisley is also doing pretty good in regards to reducing the number of students that are not meeting standards. Goal 2.2 is showing academic growth by increasing the number of students who exceed statewide growth standards. Something to be mindful when you look at this chart, and I'll make sure if you all have access to that before I begin. Okay. Is that the statewide growth average in the statewide growth standard, if you look at those numbers, it does not matter if you're at the high school, at the junior high, or at the elementary. Those percentages were set by the state, and they're across the board. And you can see here that at the high school, they did meet the growth standard in ELA, math, and science. O Block met it in ELA, but they are moving in the right direction in math and science. Holiday Park did meet the growth standard across the board in math and ELA. And Pivot did meet the growth standard in ELA, math, and science. As you're aware, at Center, they did not meet the growth standard. Center is a good example that they have high achievement, but in regards to how our students are growing compared to other students across the state, they did not meet that benchmark. As you're aware, the dyslexia pilot is in Center. We are taking a close look at interventions. We have moved resources to Center to address the growth at that particular building. So let me turn this over to Mrs. Sedlak for 2.3.
Yes, 2.3 is, I think, probably one of the most important goals of Goal 2, raising levels of student achievement and academic rigor. As Dr. Highland talked about when he came to the district as your superintendent, he interviewed students and really wanted to know and hear from them what they felt. And so when you look at this goal based on the annual student survey, there will be a combined average of 90% of students who reported that they strongly agree, and that they were appropriately engaged, questioned, and challenged in their classes. That is why we do what we do. And if it is not for the students, then I'm not sure why any of us are here. And so to set a goal of 90% when the baseline data was 75%, I give kudos. I was not here at that time, but that's a pretty powerful goal, and it sends a message that we are student-centered and that everything we do is about our students. And so when you look at the fact that we increased 5% and went to an 80% as a district, and then you can see each of the buildings, we still have a ways to go. But that is something that we continue to talk about. And when you look at the growth data, all of these are related. So if students are challenged, engaged, in their classes, then they're going to be able to grow academically a year for a year's worth of time. And then the achievement data is also going to follow suit. And so really, we had extensive conversation with the administrative team, with our department leaders about this goal. The goal 2.4 is based on the SAT, that we want to exceed the statewide average and close the gap on our comparator scores. We met that goal in English reading and writing, and we were 2 points off in math. We will not see the results. The state will not release those results until February, and at that point, we will update the scorecard. It's about that time that the Pittsburgh Business Times will query all of the data and report out how the local schools are doing both on the SAT, ACT, PSSA, and Keystones. So that is goal 2.4.
We talked about 2.3 today in our MST meeting, which is our manager of school team meeting. And that is, to me, that's one of the most important goals. Nothing drives me more crazy than when my kids come home from school and I say, what did you do in school today? And the standard answer is nothing, right? So we want them to be able to say that they feel challenged, that they feel that there is rigor in their classrooms. And trying to get 9 out of 10 people to agree on anything is really, really difficult. But again, going back to, if you don't set your expectations high, you're not going to reach there. So those principals that are here today, and even the teachers that are here today, we are putting it out there for the entire public to know that that is what we're shooting for. Every kid should be challenged every single day in their classroom. And if they're not, why are we here? What are we doing? And so if there's anything that we look at, and that was backed up by me going around and talking to kids. And when kids are saying that they need more, our scores can go nowhere but up, and our achievement can go nowhere but up. And so we owe that to our kids to challenge them. And so we're going to continue to work at that goal, and we're going to get better at that goal. The SAT goal, it opens up avenues for kids. When kids do better on their SATs, it opens up opportunities and doors for kids to get into other schools, but it also opens up the wallet for parents. When they do better on the SATs, they do better from a financial aid standpoint, believe me. I know.
Sure.
I wish I would have done better, or my kid would have done better. I would have had more money in my pocket.
Dr. Hyman, on 2.3, and I'm sure you guys probably talked about this in your meeting. To me, when I read that, and maybe it's just because from a survey perspective, right, to answer the question accurately, I need to know what you're asking me. And so I would think for some of our students who have those, who I think as you guys continue to work and get better, our students will recognize what being challenged and engaged means versus not being challenged and not being engaged. So it's tough to answer that question if you don't know what that looks like in a classroom, right? So if you know what it looks like, then you're like, oh yeah, that happened to me this year.
It's interesting in the discussions that you have, when I asked the kids, I think it was at Oak Block, the kid said, well, I know what it is. I don't want more work.
Yep.
And that's
challenging.
Right. They recognize the difference between challenge, I think,
Yeah.
a lot of times, than busy work. Because the kids will instantly go, that's just more busy work. They just give us more busy work. And so, and the kids are the best detector that there are. They'll tell you when someone's challenging them and when someone's just pushing them off to the side. So to your point, well taken, you have to know what it looks like and feel like to be able to say, yeah, I'm getting that.
And I would almost venture to say they might not like it all the time, but they would still answer yes.
It's
They would
like-
answer yes, that they were engaged and challenged, even if it wasn't always.
It's like good medicine.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
It's like loving your parents once you're older, right?
Hey, I looked at the question in the morning work with you, same concept. I don't like it, Mom, but it's in case you're ready for the day.
That's right. Okay, any questions about 2? 3. John? There you are.
Goal 3, maximize fiscal responsibility and alternative revenue. We identified 6 measures, primary measures of things that we found that we could drive, or things that looked, in terms of comparable data from other schools in the county, a little bit skewed. So the first one, and we looked at this from a holistic approach too. We looked at expenditures and revenues in its totality. So So there's not one particular thing we're focusing on. We're focused on driving that revenue and reducing expenditure where it makes sense. So 3.1 is we started taking a look at our comparative data across the IU. We noticed that we were higher than most schools in terms of the percentage of money spent on salary and benefits across the IU. The IU is about 74%. We're almost at 80%. We want to get that number down over the next few years to the average. And I believe that when we have the data for this upcoming year, we'll post it for you. Right now, the comparable data is not out yet because in the case where we need the comparable data, it's all still being analyzed and it'll be posted by PDE. It's based on our annual financial report data, which was due at the end of November, but many schools don't submit that until significantly after that. So once all of it's compiled, then we'll provide you with more accurate and updated information as far as the comparables.
We had a choice to make on some of these things. You would think, well, why wouldn't you just present this once all the data's in? But we didn't want the entire year to go by without at least giving you a snapshot of where we were. So as soon as that data comes in, we will make sure that we report it out to the board and to the public.
My expectation is that number is going to be closer to the IU average immediately for next year, and it'll likely continue to go down based on different things that we were able to, different levers we were able to pull. 3.2 is cyber charter schools. It's a very small percentage of our budget. It's about 1.63% of our budget. Our comparable groups, people that we want to compare ourselves against, are about 1.15%. So basically, we did not hit our goal for this year. Our goal was $900,000, which would have been a reduction of $80,000 to last year's expense. We did not hit that. What happened was in 2018, we had a very good year in terms of reducing that cost, and last year it went back up again. So what we have to do is get better in our recruiting efforts, better in our efforts to get out there and knock on doors and get a hold of families that have children in charter and cyber schools.
You know, a lot of this we're fighting. We don't take money to advertise our school. So the only way that we can advertise is how we do on our scores, how we look in the newspaper, what are our facilities like, where are our graduates going. That's our best form of advertising. And that's what we have to do. We have to have the best of everything. Us putting our numbers out there for people to see, and hopefully they see that we're increasing, that's our form of advertising. I wish we could put billboards up, but the public's not going to go for spending money on that, nor should they.
But they go for it with the cyber charter.
They certainly do.
Well, I would still recommend if any of those students are students that have done both, the AIU sponsors what we use for our cyber versus some of the other public-private cyber programs. Getting feedback from those students about if they came and then they left again, what is it that they prefer? Just because I think we don't have total control over the cyber program that we're using. It's through the AIU.
No question. I think Adam, are you here? Yeah, right here. Adam's, he's been like a dog with a bone on reaching out to a lot of those people and talking to them and finding out why they went to cyber and why they came back or why won't they come back. And so he has a whole spreadsheet, and he has taken on that mantle. And that number, this is an example of the results don't necessarily reflect the effort that has gone into it. That's one of those ones where he is. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you've called everyone and even gone to some people's homes.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah, that was. I called every single one. I made home visits. So.
Do we know if any of them are people who came back and then opted to leave again?
I don't know that.
If
like they came back and then they left again?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I do not believe so. I think a lot of the kids who did not opt to come back were already there and they were happy. They didn't see a reason to change right now. And that's why I'll follow up this year with them as well, to try to get them to come back, especially those kids who are going to different pathways, like from the fourth graders, to try to get them like,
Right.
hey, you're coming to a different school, it's a new, all the kids are new to the school, to try to get those kids.
And I would guess a lot of them probably don't know or aren't aware of the fact that they can get the extracurriculars if they come back. to
Right,
our
we've
program.
actually had a couple high school kids who have come back. The one kid, he started like a blended program with us, and within the first 3 weeks of being here, he transferred to a full-time student here, which then led to one of his other buddies. So it just finding those kids and getting them in, and then letting them kind of do our advertising for us and spread the word.
Absolutely.
Is there a common theme on why people leave, or is it just all over the map on why people?
Yeah, it's all over the map. So honestly, we have a family in the district that they're very set on it. You know, that's what they believe in. You know, there's other kids who, you know, for whatever reasons, it works for them. So yeah, there's all kinds of reasons. They're on my spreadsheet.
Like on sports, kids have a particular interest in a sport, and it takes them away from, like, they want to, I've seen dancers, like ballet dancers, where
Hockey.
they need the entire half
That's a
day.
big one.
Yeah, hockey is another one.
And
We actually
there are
have
games
some
until-
really good hockey players in the district that don't go to our school, but they're going to our system.
Need an offer night school.
And the next item is 3.3. Right now, we are 3 out of 42 in non-instructional costs on a per-student basis. That's right where we want to be. You know, our money wants to go, we will put our money in instruction, and I think we do that extraordinarily well. So our goal for the next 5 years is to maintain that and stay in the top 5 of schools that spend the least amount on non-instructional costs. That's things from support operations, facilities, and debt service. So we do a good job with that, and we want to continue to do that. My suspicion will be that when those numbers are posted, we'll still be able to make that proclamation. 3.4 is about revenue. If you notice, we rank 38th out of 42 schools in Allegheny County in revenue on a per-student basis. Our target goal is in 5 years from now, we want to be in the middle. We want to rank in the middle for that, and that's going to take some work, and that's going to take some effort. And the next goal goes a little bit hand in hand with that in terms of revenue. This is generating our own revenue. We hit our goal for 2019. We had $105,000 that we hit in alternative revenue. And I'll tell you, for 2020, our goal was $150,000. I suspect us to hit that fairly easily. I suspect we hit that number already. I have to verify that number, but I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at with that.
What do you see as the reason for that large increase?
We had a couple big significant donations this year. The Toyota one was fairly significant. We had one from our photography company. Between those two, that was about $60,000 just between those two alone. The dyslexia grant was another big chunk of the alternative revenue, which was another 30. So, I mean, we're already sitting at around $90,000 in alternative revenue.
Is these kind of monetary and non-monetary? Or
We just count just anything that comes into the district as monetary. Yeah. And any grant, we count that in as well. Any not grants that you know you're going to get, but grants that you apply for and you have to earn.
Does that include the donors choose and those types of things?
Yes, yes. So this would be any type of alternative revenue generated from anybody. Anybody within the, well, not even necessarily the district. If it comes to the district in terms of money that would be earned, yeah, I would contribute to that. And then the final one is fund balance. We never want to get to the point where we're in the negative. Again, we have policies for that, but we also have goals now as well. And we want to be at that 7% mark in fund balance unassigned, so that we have, obviously, the ability to have some operating funds if need be. And that's the 6 goals that I have.
Okay, goal 4. I lost my way here.
that is satisfy our customers and community. And one of the things that I think is important with this school is, again, it's a perception survey, right? So we're finding out what they're feeling on that particular day. We tried to pick out those questions that we thought were the ones that are going to give us our best bang for our buck. You know, as board members, I know you get phone calls and you get people coming up to you in the grocery store or wherever, and they give you certain tidbits of information, right? And what we want to do is we kind of want to take that information in, but also we want to be able to take that information that you share with us or you share with another administrator and balance it up against a significant number of people and what they are saying about their overall experience, as opposed to just onesies and twosies, right? We want a more holistic approach. And again, I go back to, as more and more people see that we take this seriously, I think we'll get more and more people giving us honest and constructive feedback on how to get better. So if you look at this, you'll see that there are parents and students. We weighted them both equally important. Parents have a perspective, students have a perspective, and sometimes they're not the same. But when they are the same, then you have something. When there are differences, you need to look into those differences. I'll quickly go through these. In each one, most of these, except for what I believe is the most important one, I think the most important one is, do we want people recommending our school district to someone coming into Western Pennsylvania? That's what we want. And that's the last one. We'll get to that one, but that's the one that I think we need to really make sure that we hit. In terms of satisfying, in terms of our academic program, do people feel satisfied with it? Last year it was 72.5, the overall district. Our goal, we moved it up. Goal was 77.5. Again, our ultimate end goal is to have 9 out of 10 people say that they strongly agree or agree with each one of our questions. Again, lofty goal. But we did see growth in that. We got to 83% of the people who respond to the survey agree or strongly agree with the direction of the academic program. I think that says a lot. The students, last year overall was 78%. And this year, it was 89%, so we met our goal. Now, I will tell you, again, this is survey data. I think Mr. Nicely was probably giving away like Hershey bars when he gave the survey, right? So I don't know what he's doing there, but we got to get it in a bottle and capture it, because 99% of the kids are happy. So, how come you can't find that one kid? We're still looking for him. So we do recognize that kind of skews the data a little bit, all right? But again, it's perception, and we're asking kids their opinion, and that's the opinion that they gave us, all right? We asked about the academic program, and now we're asking overall, if you look at 4.3 and 4.4. Again, 4.3, parents weren't so happy, and there are a lot of other things, that were going on in the district. And so we set, the goal was set at 75, we met that goal, and it's a positive trajectory. The kids were at 75, and we got to 79% on that. So moving in the right direction. Here's a big one. Are they prepared? Do parents feel that their kids are prepared for the next level in their educational process? Last year it was 65%. The goal was 85, and we got to 90% of the kids feel as though they're prepared for the next grade. The parents are feeling the same thing. So we're feeling really, really good about that. Moving on to 4.7. I don't know what Mr. Morgan's doing on those buses, but he's doing something that's actually pretty impressive, especially with the change in configuration that we had in the district. My hat's off to him, did a heck of a job on that one. The food service, I think Ms. Griggle probably has the toughest job in the district, because honestly, if you can get over half the kids to say that they like a school lunch, you're doing something pretty positive. So even though that number, she did not meet her goal, that her department didn't meet that goal, it did move up. And I think you all know the challenges that go along with trying to meet the federal standards for not having any sugar in anything that you, or salt that you provide. So we'll continue to work at it. Central office, I'll be interested to see, the baseline data was 65%, our goal was 80%. We moved it up to 70%. I'll be interested to see what happens after they see the use of the district app, the use of like the Who We Are Wednesdays, Plum Is, and just trying to get out the good messages that are going on. But with so many people using the app, we're anticipating that should go up significantly because there's an awful lot of communication that goes on. Doesn't mean that it's perfect. Sometimes people don't necessarily like the message that's coming out, whether it's a snow day or whether it's not a snow day. But the point is that we've set the goal high, and we're going to continue to move towards that. This is the one that we need to work on. We need to get folks feeling as though they have one of the best schools in Western Pennsylvania, and that they would strongly recommend their district to somebody that is moving into the district. You know, we're at 76%, we went down 1%. I'm a little disappointed by that. And that's from the student perspective. And again, it's not statistically significant that it's 1 point, but it's still, the data is what the data is. But the parents, we saw an uptick from the parents, so we saw that as positive. Mr. Luletta, Mr. Nicely, Ms. Payne were working on that goal. Who else? Did I miss anybody else? And Mr. Mergen. Anything that you guys want to add?
I was just commenting to Mr. Luletta, hats off to Mr. Mergen last year. If you did not know the amount of work he put into getting our transportation department up and running with all the changes within the district, it was mind-boggling from my end. I couldn't imagine it from his. So he is truly amazing, and to have the survey results come back like that, it's pretty cool. That's what it is, pretty cool. So, nice job.
So looking over that, I can't, the 411 bothers me, so hopefully next year we can get our students on board and wanting to recommend and be proud of Plum School District. So I'm focused on that goal myself, but just looking overall, I think we did a really good job for 1 year. So I'm interested to see what comes up next year.
What do you think could help improve those numbers?
Programs, student-centered programs, and then keep driving the vision, keep doing what we're doing. It's just 1 year data, so continuing to drive programs and do the curriculum online and just continue our vision overall.
Before we get to the next two, it's an interesting trend that O-Block students and parents were almost identical in their responses, and they always tested at the bottom or next to the bottom. Do you guys have any insight on why you think that might be the case? Do you think it's an age issue, but the parents are matching their responses almost identically in a lot of the factors?
We noticed that. We had some transition last year, obviously, within the building itself. Mrs. Fight started the year in August, and then obviously Mr. Fischel transitioned up to high school, and I transitioned in November. And so, we've really taken a hard look at that. It's one of those things where we have to own the numbers and own what it is. We've had a lot of change within the building itself, so we're moving in a positive direction that we feel our numbers are going to be different this year. Dr. Walsh talked about HP and some of those PSA scores. I beg to differ. I look across the state, you look at 7th grade and 8th grade PSA scores. It's very similar trend. So I think those are words you might have to swallow on that one a little bit. But we're moving in a good direction. I think we've had a significant positive uptake. We have students engaged and involved in a lot of our feedback loops. Our PSA scores, achievement, increased in a short period of time. So it's fair. It is what it is. And when I sat down with Dr. Walsh last year, even Dr. Highland, that was one of the things that was just, I had a hard time swallowing my pride with that one. But again, it is what it is. You can say November, I transitioned in, but it doesn't matter. It's the ownership and taking what we're going to do differently moving forward.
Sure. Please, I don't mean that as a criticism.
No,
I just thought it was an interesting quirk in the data, and it sounds.
I love data. Listen, we can talk all night long about data. So.
Yeah, I think it's a really good response to talk about the transitions that went on. So
sure. I want to add definitely your mind just another point when we're talking about satisfaction. Something that became very apparent as Mr. Boyers was transitioning in is that our teachers did not have any data to drive instruction. We implemented the classroom diagnostic tools this year, which are formative assessments, which tells us the strengths and areas of opportunity for our students. We implemented ALEX, which is a computer artificial intelligence in regards to challenging our kids. All of those were added this year, and we believe that that's going to impact moving into next year. But the transition obviously played a big role in regards to having 3-4 administrators in that building last year, and being able to maintain the level from the previous year, but we do anticipate that going in a positive direction.
I think, you bringing that up, Calgary, that's not, for us, that's not a negative. That's just us saying, hey, look, and I appreciate the way that Mr. Boyers responded to it. It's like, we don't see it as, it's like that, we're trying to get better. Like, we want to get better at this. And the easy way would be to not have this, because there aren't many districts that do this, that put the data out there for people to see. I would challenge you to go and find 15 districts and 40 out of the 42 in the county that actually are secure enough in themselves to be able to say, hey, look, we're trying to set the bar high. So we see that as your job. Is if you see something that we need to work on, we have no problem with it. Like, we're gonna own it. So we appreciate you pointing it out.
When you look at some of the numbers, is there a way to pinpoint why they're low?
Yeah, so
Specific questions,
Yeah.
that's my thought.
yeah,
As to
so
what are
like
specific things.
one of the things that you do is you can't overreact, but you can't underreact to some of these things, right? So what we will do is when we have this data, like last year, when we go around and I go and talk with kids,
Yeah.
and I've encouraged every one of my principals to have feedback loops. I will go in and I will get a group of kids, a representative group, and Maria, we've met one time and we have to meet again, and we continue to meet at the high school level, and we ask them about the survey data that we see, and tell us, like, give us the information, the qualitative data as opposed to the quantitative data. What's the real number? Why is this so low? And you get really good information. And so that's where you can go. And sometimes you can get information, like data that comes back like too high. Like, it makes no sense. Like,
Yeah.
why is that so high? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
We're watching you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So it works both ways.
Yeah.
So I think you have to drill down deeper. And this is like taking the temperature, and then you have to go and diagnose a little bit more by going and asking more
Can we
questions.
do the same thing for parents? Is there a?
So when we did the coffee with the cabinet, that was one example of us going out and getting feedback. Next year, we're going to go by goal next year. We're going to go goal 1, we're going to have it this building, goal 2, we're going to have it this building. We're trying a different approach. We talked about it at Superintendent's Cabinet. How can we get feedback from parents about what we're doing? We do believe the survey is probably the best indicator because everybody can give input into what's going on. But for us to drill down a little bit deeper, there's the old 5 whys. Have you heard of the 5 whys? I'll do it with kids. They're not knowing that I'm doing the 5 whys. But I'm digging down and I'm trying to get to that root cause analysis as to what are these numbers. And that's your question.
So did
Is that
they,
too much
was there a writing that went along, like, did anybody get to write suggestions or anything in that?
Oh, yeah, they write.
Did that help us gauge anything? I mean, was there something that was consistent, I guess is the question. Whether it be good or
I
bad,
will
whether
tell
it
you this,
be
the
Jason's
people-
handing out candy bars or whatever it might be, was there a consistency in some of the comments?
I wouldn't say there was a I would say this. I would say the people that are angry are consistently angry throughout the people who tend to write are generally the people who really have something to say. I mean, they're really upset about it. So I'll give you an example. When the teachers were being furloughed, and there was some really rough comments there. And there are some people that really take some really inappropriate shots at people too. And so there's part of us that says, in order to be transparent, we want to put that data out to the community, but there's some things in there, it's like, take out some of those comments, because when I tell you they are inappropriate, they are off the charts inappropriate. So we didn't want to be the ones that distilled the data.
So we just said we're not putting out the comments, we're just gonna put out the data. It's just not fair to some of our employees.
Right.
But in terms of trends, nothing that's not reflected in the
Okay.
numbers.
That was just a
Because if there was,
curiosity.
I think it's a really good question. It kind of gives you the level of passion that someone has about a particular topic. And we have the ability, we don't know who does it, but we can track across their surveys, their questions, and then see their comments at the end. Because in each section, there'll be a section on academics, there'll be a section on safety. And you'll see, it's interesting, there'll be some people that will rate you really high and then take shots. And it makes no sense. The data is what the data is. But to answer your question, no, I really didn't see anything that wasn't reflected in the numbers. It was a great question.
The people who don't respond, are we doing anything to target them for the next year to get more engagement?
Other than emailing them constantly and letting them know that the survey is available to them.
Well, then they have to take ownership at some point. Be grown up and be responsible.
I think it's one of those things that, again, once they see that we're talking about it,
Right.
it's on TV, like, we're listening to you, give us your feedback. I think we can lead a horse to water, they have to decide they want to drink. Do you have any ideas?
No, my point is, most likely the people who are responding are most likely happy and not responding, because if they were not happy, they would be responding then to give us the negative feedback. So these numbers are probably skewed in our favor, because people who are happy are most likely not, that aren't responding are probably happy.
The people who are not responding are probably happy?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? I want to make sure. I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Most people, when they are happy, they're just going to let it go. That's a perfect example. There's no one in the audience. Generally, that's a pretty good indicator. I'm sorry. Augie, I'm sorry back there too.
Big person right now.
But that's a pretty good indicator that people are okay with the way things are going. But that's not going to stop us from raising the bar against ourselves. So I think you're right, Mike. I think the numbers would actually be better if they were forced to fill out that survey.
So we keep bringing up that Center Elementary did really well in a lot of areas. So are you tracking best practices, like what student feedback is about what is going right and how that might be used in other schools?
We do talk about, we don't say, like have a specific agenda item. We said Center is knocking it out of the park, we're doing this. But generally, it's not as though we're doing this in isolation. We talk about all the things that are going on in each one of those buildings. Some of it takes on the personality of the principal and the teachers and the kids that they have there. It just does. So I think we all know what, like Jason's doing in his building. We all know what each person's doing in their building. We do talk about the surveys, but that's something we certainly could have on an agenda. Why do you think those numbers are what they are? I think that's actually a really good idea. Instead of focusing on why the numbers are low, why are the numbers high?
Right, I mean, what are we doing right?
Yeah.
What are the kids, especially when the kids are giving you feedback that looks like that? What is it that's happening in that school
Great.
that is really attracting,
Mhm.
that kind of numbers, those kind of numbers?
Agree with that. Okay.
I know, like in regards to the students, I think a lot has changed for them, for us, in the past year or two. And I know people generally don't really like change and they don't want to adapt to it. But I think I've seen as time has moved on, with the new curriculum that has been introduced and the different technologies and programs, students are starting to get a little more comfortable. So I think as long as there's still a push to keep them engaged, the numbers will go up eventually.
Okay. So that pretty much takes care of goal 4. Goal 5, I will say, Ms. Sedlak kind of inherited a tough one here because she's in a transition, coming over, only being here for, 4 months now?
Yes,
4
not
months.
quite, but close.
So this is her particular goal, and so we do have some work to do in this area, but just know that there was a bit of a transition, so go ahead.
Yes, and I have a tremendous team, so I'm going to introduce Mr. Boyers and then Ms. Gestrich, and then I'm going to chime in as well.
Good evening. So for Goal 5, cultivate a first-rate workforce, our goal is to attract, retain, and grow all the employees in our organization. So a pretty tough task. We have obviously a variety of folks that represent our organization and what we do. For 5.1 specifically, we want our employees to grow. And so what we are showing here is we did not meet our goal for 2019. The goal was to at least have 72 credits accumulated for post-secondary pass certification, and we came in just short of that at 68. However, for this current year, or halfway through now, we're trending at 84 right now. So we're going to meet and attain that goal. We don't actually have that benchmark initial data point because before the 2019 school year, we weren't calculating the data out. So we're going to actually have to go back through every employee's personnel file to attain that information so we can actually have that first benchmarking point. So it's 5.1.
And 5.2 is a work in progress. We are developing a personalized professional development program as well as micro-credentialing to increase the number of employees, not just teachers, that are using, that we are providing professional development. We'll be rolling out a personalized learning that is online to our teaching staff in February. And then we will be working with all of our department leaders in all of our other areas to look at what transportation may need, what food service may need, what custodians and maintenance may need, and really look at developing some online programs so that everyone can be included in professional development, not just a one-shot in August before the school year starts with the transportation department or others. And so those are things that are in process, but as of now, we have not met them because we have not done any of that. When we look at our average annual absentee rate, and we talked about our student attendant rates in Goal 1. Last year, our average absentee rate was at 4%, and the links there show it by each different employee data group. This year, we're at 8%. We know that substitute teachers are hard to find. We know that bus drivers are next to impossible to find. So that when we have absentees and call-offs, this is not something that is specific to Plum Borough School District. It's something across the Commonwealth as well as the country. We also, in conversation, we were work to roll with some of our CBAs, and so that might have impacted attendance and absenteeism. You can look at, there's some that are in double digits, and those are things that we need to look at. Mr. Zahorchak and I have talked about looking at attendance incentives, and what is a way that we can really look at trying to encourage people not to call off. And so those are things that we want to be creative as we continue to move forward, and how can we continue to sustain and lower our attendance and absentee rate. We talked about the fact that unemployment is at an all-time low, and so it's really hard to fill positions and to get substitutes when your unemployment rate is at the lowest rate we've seen in decades. And so, we're facing a lot of problems, but we will continue to work collaboratively as a team with everyone to address these.
For 5.4, we're talking about evaluating employees within the organization. So through PDE, the standard is one observation a year is the minimum requirement. So you can see that we actually met and we're starting to exceed that goal. You can see progressively our goal is to increase the number of observations, whether it be formal or informal. We feel very positively within the organization that if we're observing employees and giving them quality feedback, that we need to continue to follow up to change those behaviors to see the impact throughout the classroom or in other facets of our district as well.
And I think the important aspect about that is the principals are really working on good teaching and learning by looking at the Danielson framework, by looking at the Plum created its own walkthrough instrument that is aligned to the Daniel framework, which is the evaluative tool for teachers. They really personalized it and spent a lot of time creating that. and then are using that. And so it really is giving teachers ongoing feedback. It's that supervisory role that is not an I got you, but we're here to help you get better and help you learn. And we're seeing tremendous success as a result of that. Mrs. Gessrich.
Yes, as the last two performance indicators for Goal 5 incorporate what we were talking about earlier with the survey. This is how we incorporate teacher feedback about the professional development that is offered. In 5.5, this is reflecting, our goal is to increase the percentage of professional employees that feel once a professional development session is over, they then answer a survey question as to determine whether or not they feel that that professional development was useful. And we incorporate those responses that agree or strongly agree. And although our goal was 85 for this year, we did not meet that goal. It was at 75% of our teachers. But in looking at the survey that came back from our in-service in the fall, we've already are shooting for a much higher number to exceed our goal of 86 this year. We're in the 90s already. So as long as we continue to offer professional development throughout the remainder of this year, we should meet that goal of 86%.
I would say, quite frankly, there were some very unhappy teachers during in-service last year.
Correct. And then in 5.6, it is very similar. It is regarding the same type of goal, but it is with our non-professional employees. And this is still under development with those departments that house those non-professional employees, but we want to give them the same voice. When we are finished with a professional development session or a training for those employees, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to share with us as a committee and as an administrative team how useful that is in relation to the job that they do on a daily basis. Okay.
So I think in looking at cultivating a first-rate workforce, we've made tremendous strides with really giving employees a lot of feedback, the teachers a lot of feedback. Those conversations that they're having are really rich and allow the principal and the teacher to be reflective of their practice. We hope to be able to make sure that other departments are given those same opportunities to have a voice in what they're doing, on ways that we can improve our operations, and to really have some of that communication with their supervisors so that everyone feels a part of it. Because that bus driver is the first person that our children see in the morning and the last person that our children see at the end of the day. That bus driver has more intel than most of us because they're in the neighborhoods, they see the parents, they see how the kids are getting on and off the bus. They are critical. Our cafeteria workers, our custodians, they are interacting with the students and they provide us a level of intel that oftentimes we miss because we have 30 kids in the classroom and they're building those relationships. And so we want to really make sure that there are supervisors in place that can really work with our staff and gather that information so that we can do our jobs better, more efficiently to serve our student body.
Okay, the next goal was measure against the best. I'm just going to tell you, you're going to see a lot of red here, all right? So that's the bottom line. But I look at it this way. If you are running a race by yourself, you're going to win all the time. But if you want to get better, you're going to race against the best that are out there. And so I have Dr. Rainier Hershey, and I have Ms. Gibson, and Ira.
All right, so we had a pretty lofty goal area in that we were looking at a lot of data from some resources and reporting tools specific to Western PA, comparing ourselves within those. So the first area we have 6.1 is based on the Pittsburgh Business Times rankings, and our goal was to increase our rankings relative to Allegheny County. And just to kind of give you some information about the Pittsburgh Business Times, it bases their data that they pull from the PSSA data from the prior 3 years. So it's actually looking at data from 2016, 2017, and 2018. So for us to see the full impact and effect of the work that we've been doing over this past year or so towards these goals, we're not going to see that full impact probably for a couple of years. But with that being said, it's our goal area and we're reporting on that. So we are down from 16, we're up from 16 to 17, but our goal was to get to 15 out of 42.
Okay, the next one for 6.2 is that based on the U.S. News report for college readiness, we're going to increase our goal. So we went from 39.2, and this year we're at 36.6. Our goal was 41, so we did not meet that goal. This college readiness index is based off of AP assessments. So we're looking at 12th graders that are taking the assessment. That accounts for 25% of that score. And then the other 75% accounts for those that took it and how they performed on it. So we're hopeful that with the increase in academic rigor and some of the vertical teams, things that we're doing, we're gonna, those kids are gonna start to come up a little more as time passes.
Our third component of this goal is the niche website. This is a public website that anybody can go on to and create a login and rate our school district or the building that their student is in. A student can do a rating, a parent, a community member, alumni, anybody. And our goal was they come up with grades that are based on not only the ratings of the public, but also they pull data from test scores that are available, absenteeism rates, any sort of public data that they can pull. So all of that goes into these grades. And we were looking, there's 10 different areas, and we want to receive a rating of A or better on 9 out of 10 areas. We were at 3 out of 10, and now we're at 2 out of 10. The areas, and if you go to the link there and you just type in Palmboro School District, you can see more detail. But the ratings are academics, teachers, clubs and activities, administration, food, diversity, college prep, health and safety, sports and resources and facilities. We had A's in academics and teachers. And it's actively being looked at by our community members because within the last 24 hours, there was a review that a parent wrote on there. So we're talking about ways that we can drive more people to this site to give us that feedback. So much like the survey data we talked about, this is another perspective-based goal. And I think we talked about maybe putting a link on the website or having our graduating seniors complete it just to get more data into that pool for them to take from.
I will tell you, real estate agents use this quite a bit. I know in my previous districts, when I had the responsibility of taking people on tours, they would say that they went to this particular website to get information. I will tell you, I think it's more prevalent in the South Hills and in the North Hills than it is in the eastern part of the city. But you take some of the same things that they measure, we're already measuring it internally. We're measuring it in the other survey questions that we've asked. And so there's an example where there's two different types of data. And so the hope is, and I've asked the team to go and talk with people from each to ask them what are some ways that we can go ahead and how is the data, how are these other districts getting the message out, and how is the data being reflected?
You can definitely have somebody from here liaison to them and influence your data.
Yep.
And do some things proactively.
You can own your school.
You can own your school, and you could at a cost own your school as well, but you could also own your school and make sure that some things that might be inaccurate, you can make sure to prove that they are accurate. So there's a measure of it that is influenced by those who are leaving reviews, but then the data-driven portions, if you have data that supersedes what they're finding as public data, you can provide that to them. And once you do that, you kind of whoever you would have do it can manage their account, can manage your account. So they can have a login, they can go and make some adjustments to it, and then you can make it more user-friendly for the person who's coming. The real estate agent who's sending people to it, you can have your logo that's there, you can own it. So I would highly encourage.
I would imagine next January, we will be owning portions of ours. And Mr. Hill, you had asked the question about cyber kids. How do we get them? That's one of the ways we can get them back.
And how is this data pumped? How is the ratings?
You can see there's a place in.
Are these
I can show you another point how you get into it. Yeah.
I have a question on 6.2. I'm sorry to go backwards, but I would imagine one of the key factors in the data there has to do with the number of AP courses and the number of students taking those courses. how do we compare relative to the other schools that we're competing against with regard to the ratio of students and AP classes offered per number of total students in the district?
I don't have those exact numbers. I'm sure the high school principals could speak a little better to that, but one thing that we did discuss with them is, and I think maybe starting last year, we had a lot of students taking AP courses because of the weighted grade. They wanted that, and then they were taking the AP course and maybe not taking it so seriously. I think that in the past year we've had a 20% increase of ratings, like passing the AP assessment. So the students that are taking them now, we think are taking them more seriously. We have a little more intent with that, and we're hopeful that those numbers will continue to increase. I don't know if one of the principals.
Yeah, we've already seen that with the change. That data was based on our 2018 scores, with 58% of our kids passing the AP school test if they took it. Last year we had 79% of our kids who took an AP score of 3 or above. So we had a 20-point drop, but we had less kids taking the AP test. But the ones that did, we saw a rise in that score. So we're going to have to see how that plays out in that rating. If you had to take an educated guess, how do you think we compare with the number of course offerings per number of students in the district compared to those other 5 school districts? I would say we do okay. We offer a lot of AP courses. I'm sure that there are districts out there that offer more than we do, but I think we do okay. I think we do our.
I think we probably owe you a better answer, a more definitive answer. Not that that's not a bad answer. So we're going to go find out and give you the exact numbers.
Yeah, that's great. What's one of the things we heard a lot about? I will tell you from someone who was out on the trail. I probably knocked 4,000, even 3,000 doors, something like that. And some of the high school parents, now I think it's perception, felt like there weren't enough course offerings in the AP world. I really couldn't tell you if we offered enough, too little, too many. When we started our program of studies, when we started this process, one of the things that Mrs. Sedlak asked us to do was to look at those program of studies from North Allegheny, Mount Lebanon, South Fayette. So we have those. We'll take a look and we'll give you something. We'll send something to her so she can pass it on to you so that you can take a look at it in comparison. Yeah, that's great. I'd love to be an advocate because I think we probably offer a number of courses in line with the ratio of number of students per district. It would be good to kind of wash those rumors. We'll get that to you.
We'll put it in the board information.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and if we could see, maybe the IU can get us the data, that might be helpful. We can see all across Allegheny County. I would like to know what's offered here in the building versus what we're offering online as well. And see that as a comparison.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, 6.4 and 6.5 are related to the PA Future Ready Index. So 6.4 is specific to absenteeism, and our goal was to get to 93.8% as far as the number of students who've missed more than 10% of school days across that academic year, and we want to increase our ranking relative to our targeted comparator groups. So again, 93.8 was our goal. Our actual, what we hit was 90.9%. The Future Ready Index in this area is specific to the PIMS data, which is what we use for our information management system in Pennsylvania, what we input all of our data related to student absences and a lot of other information. I do think that we'll continue to see us get closer to hitting that goal. We've made a lot of improvements in each building related to truancy plans and making sure that if we do have students who have extensive absences, we're addressing that with the district magistrates. We're, especially at the high school, they've been doing a great job. We have plans of action that we're putting into place for students that are struggling with school attendance from elementary up to the high school.
And we'll end on a positive note. 6.5, we actually exceeded our goal and increased. So this is based on us meeting the career standards. And these have been newly developed. So the 17-18 school year was the first year that this data was tracked by the state. And it has to do with the collection of evidence that our students are participating in activities that promote career preparation and exploration. And this starts as young as kindergarten and of course extends up through middle school. The data from the state is actually calculated in grades 5, 8, and 11. So the way that these numbers are calculated is they are district averages based on all of the buildings that have 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. So for example, last year, Center and Pivot were included in the data, but this year, they're not because they're K-4. So they don't have that reporting year. Despite that, they are still, the counselors have been very involved in the past year developing the 339 plan, which has to do with all of this career development and how they're collecting evidence that our students are engaging in these activities. So that's definitely a positive piece. I know our counselors have worked very hard to be developing that and collecting the data that supports our students are having those experiences.
I want to, that pretty much concludes our balanced scorecard presentation. Now, I recognize we took an awful lot of time on this. In the next year when we present this, it probably won't be as much time because you have been more familiar with the process. But we thought it was important that we spend a good amount of time. This is the results of what we're doing. And so if we're not spending time with you on that, then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So I appreciate you indulging us the opportunity to go ahead and share this information with you. We do have a lot on the agenda tonight, and I see people going like this quite a bit, so I get it. But we do think it's important that you see this information. This isn't going away. After tonight, we're going to post this on the website. Everyone's going to be able to see it, and we're going to get better. We're going to keep getting better and better. And if we're not, then you're going to hear that we're not getting better. Okay? Okay. So.
All right, next on the agenda is Student Achievement Activities Committee. We have several items under this agenda item. Dr. Newsom, would you like to?
Yeah, I think, there we go. Dr. Ross going to do that. This team is going to do that.
Quietly walking over. This evening, we're going to present the work that, quite frankly, started into last year in taking a close look at our math, not only achievement, but our growth. One of our big ideas is that we believe the complete picture of our student achievement is not only achievement, but growth together, okay? When we presented our academic achievement report to the board, the one thing that I felt that everybody in this room was proud of is looking at our overall growth scores in the district. Looking at the launch pad on PBOS, 2 years ago, 42 of the 75 quintiles were pink. And what that means is the state measures student achievement in quintiles, 1 through 5, 1 meaning the the bottom 20%, 40, and going forth with that. So this year, the number decreased significantly to 17. And what pink means is that our students were not maintaining their relative position with other students in their cohort across the state. Quite frankly, they were losing ground. Our math scores were flat. We did not even, there's pockets, I would say, of excellence and achievement. We have buildings that really good things are happening, but systematically, it wasn't across the board. So with Mr. Boyers and Mrs. Gesrich and our department leaders, we started down this road to look at what was research telling us. What was the data? How was the data informing us? What were the exemplary schools that we like to compare ourselves to? What are they doing differently than what we're doing here in Plum Borough? So we started down this path. Before any presentation, we like to talk about how it aligns with our strategic goals. Obviously, increasing levels of student achievement and academic rigor is our number 2 goal, but also part of our goal, what we're going to talk about with Pathways, is cultivating a first-rate workforce. Looking at our math vertical team, K through 12, there is substantial work being done by our math vertical team, teachers in kindergarten through 12th grade, taking a look at what teaching and learning looks like in front of our students. And that work will continue. The core members of our academic leadership committee for math are listed on this page. I would add that Mr. Silvitz and Mr. Pfeiffer are here this evening. They are department leaders, and they're going to be part of our presentation. But this is the core group that has taken a look at the data that was available to us. Ms. Sedlak and myself, we have also been keeping our department leaders across the district informed of the work that has been occurring in math. And quite frankly, we at our meeting earlier today, going through this presentation, I thought it was very well received in regards to the direction that we're recommending moving forward. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Silvitz.
So we started with the data, and I don't want to assume anything, so I want to explain this to you guys, if you've never seen these pie charts. Dr. Walsh was talking about this. What the state did was they take all the students across the state and they divide them up into fifths. So they call those the quintiles. And what they do is 5 would be your top scoring students, 1 would be your lowest scoring students. Okay? So in the state, you can see that based on the 4 and 5 here, we have a lot of top scoring students. Okay? It takes like around
video. Here's a picture of your back portion of the video.
So there's your Golden Globe. The 4 and 5, we have a lot. What that says right there, if you look at each pie chart, is we have a lot of high scoring students. Like we are doing well, we are an achieving district. But then if you go through and look at the colors, so there's 2 bits of data here. The colors are red's bad. It means the kids aren't growing. If you stood all the kids up in line, and the PLOS would say if they scored, I don't know, you could just make up a number. They're projected to score this part. Well, if they don't get that projection, you get a red. Okay, there would be a yellow that's they're close to achieving that. Green means they stayed exactly where they're supposed to. So green is like your baseline. If you saw green, you would say, hey, all of our kids stayed in line. And blue means they exceeded. Okay, so obviously you want to see a pie chart where all blues. Like that would be a perfect pie chart if these were all blues.
If there's green, that means they grew the amount that they were supposed to grow. So green, give yourself a little credit here. Green is actually, it's good. It's not great, but it's good.
They grew, yeah, exactly what the state said they should grow. As a teacher, your goal is ultimately you want to get blues. Like when that day comes out and they shoot you the email, and you get to click on it, you're like, oh, please, please, please. And you look at this. But what it's saying is you can't hide from the numbers there. There's a lot of red. If you just look at that, that's your first thing. You look at that, there's a lot of red. That's the first thing I see. You look at the 4s and 5s and like, yeah, we have a lot of high achievers, but ultimately, I think there's 14 reds. And the top line here is 18, the bottom line is 19. So if you're going to track a kid, this 18, I'm sorry, I'm in the camera, that 18 would go down, like these would be the same kids right here. Those 3rd graders turn into 4th graders and vice versa. You can do that. And that's just 2 years worth of data, but it's been very similar with that in math, which then made you go back and you have to look at the data, and this is where, where we started with this. But you're like, well, why is there all this red? What are we doing wrong here? Why do we have high achievers that can't grow? Right? It's a good problem, if everybody was getting perfect on the PSSAs, that would be a great problem. But, then we start to look at, that took us to the next data step there. You can look at this thing for a long time and just,
I'll just add one point. If the board would just take a moment, if you look at the students in the quintiles that are 4s and 5s, the proportion of the pie chart is based on the percentage of students that we have here at Plum. The majority of our students are scoring 4s and 5s. And I think that's significant when you look at this. So, okay.
You guys for sure.
Whatever I can do to avoid it, I will. So in addition, as Dr. Walsh mentioned, in addition to looking at the data, we wanted to look at the research. And so we used a variety of different resources. However, when you're talking about math, there's no better resource, in our opinion, than the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. So that's referred to as NCTM. And they provided us, and they provide all of the education world with the principles and standards of mathematics to guide exactly what we should be offering to our students when it comes to math instruction from pre-K the whole way through 12th grade. Some of the research that we were able to use and incorporate into our plan reinforce the ideas from what the data was telling us, is that we need to offer more opportunities for those high-achieving students for this growth. And one of the suggested areas that we really focused in on is curriculum compacting. And so right now, our students have the opportunity to have full grade acceleration, and we're not eliminating that, but that will be reserved for only our elite math students. Instead, what we want to do is open this opportunity up to a wider range of students. And so the compacting that you'll see that we're going to offer in the next few slides, you'll see that we are going to incorporate this opportunity based on the suggestions of NCTM and those of the National Association for Gifted Children, excuse me, pardon me, because in a traditional math lesson, there is repetition. And that repetition is there for the traditional and the grade level, like the benchmark level student. For those students who don't require all of that repetition, the curriculum can be compacted, and the pacing can be a little more rigorous, as well as the learning can be a little deeper. And we also, obviously, as a school district in the state of Pennsylvania, we have to use the Pennsylvania core standards to drive our curriculum choices. And so we're not reinventing the wheel. We are still sticking to what the state is asking us to do. We are using these research-based suggestions to be able to formulate a plan that is going to meet the needs of all of our students, but also push them. And again, referring back to the balanced scorecard, give them those opportunities so that they feel challenged in the classroom. Oh, I thought he was raising his hand. I will say that in the NCTM research, we also found a push that we are seeing in Common Core, a push that we are seeing in math classrooms every day, that it cannot be how we learned math. It can't be simple memorization of procedures or basic math facts. It has to be more than that. We want students to be able to reason and transfer those basic operations and those foundational skills to real life situations, so that they're not just memorizing the formula for area, and they're not just taking that in class and repeating that through several problems to show a teacher that they've understood it. They can stand in Lowe's 30 years later and understand that they need to buy a certain number of floor tiles in order to cover their floor with ceramic tile. And so those real life lessons are things that we need to incorporate for all students. It's not just about these advanced learners, and it's not just about remediation, it's for all students. And so math class looks very different. And so we had to create a custom pathway for all of our students that will give each of our students an opportunity for learning at their individual level. So we did, in addition to all this research, we did talk at great length about what other schools are doing, other schools that are performing at our same level or above us, those schools that we like to measure ourselves against. And I believe Mr. Pfeiffer is going to share that with you.
So, in measuring against the best, we want to see what the schools that are performing the best across the board, and we want to find out why, so that not necessarily we can copy, but we can emulate, make it our own, and do what is going to meet our students to get us on that path. So these are some of the school districts that we reached out to. What we were basically looking for is what type of programs they had in place, what progressions, what placement programs they had in place, if they were compacting, if they were accelerating, what they were doing. We were lucky enough to get the information back from these schools for us to see basically what criteria they were using, all the sort of programs that they were using to find those pathways, and then what their pathways look like. Based on the feedback that we got from that, from the great conversations that we're having in the room. I've been in this district for 15 years now. The conversations that we've been having in those rooms have been amazing, very powerful. Makes me excited, not only as a teacher in this district, but as a parent of 3 daughters in this district as well. I'm excited about where we're going with some of these pathways. But based on that feedback, based on information, based on the conversation, we were able to take some of the things that we liked that they were doing,
mold it into our own and come up with our own plan. And that's all I have.
I'm here for Mr. Gillis, who's at home with his newborn baby. I have had a great pleasure, as Mr. Pfeiffer said, of being a part of those rich conversations. Today with the department leaders, Mr. Pfeiffer and Mr. Silvers shared a little bit about the process. And I think one of the most important things that Mr. Pfeiffer said is that when you look at the compacting, there were a lot of skill sets and gaps that the students missed. And I'm going to let him speak to that, because as we look at the pathways and what I'm going to talk about in the next slide, I think really hits on what he and the team and the teachers are seeing in the classroom. So, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to kind of share a little bit, as I had asked you to do in the department. Mr. Pfeiffer?
Sure. Right now, our basic plan is essentially acceleration. And as we've gone through, the group that have been accelerating, that have been skipping a grade in math here or there, has been growing and growing and growing. And there's various reasons for that. It can be that the students really are showing that. It can be sort of that there are people that want their children pushed in that way. There's a wide variety of that. But what we're starting to see is those students that are accelerating that full year, there's gaps, there's holes. And while it doesn't take long to fill those holes, if you're in a classroom where they're in a full classroom with a wide variety of students with different learning needs in that specific classroom, finding the time to fill all those gaps and to fill all those holes to make sure that our students, are fully rounded is difficult. So what we're looking at with the compacted is making sure that, like the data said, that 24 to 70% can be eliminated just with compacting, making sure that you're covering it, making sure that the kids have that knowledge at a mastery level before moving on.
Because what happens if you don't fill those gaps get larger, and as Mrs. Gestrich said, then you have the problems when they're not learning those foundational skills. So when they get to the high school courses, they really struggle, and then you're going back and remediating basic skills. And Mr. Silvas?
Yeah, my example of that was, like right now, this was just today in class. I have like 26 graders in my 7th grade class. I have to ask them what grade they skipped, because there's 4 that skip 5th grade, there's some that skip 4th grade, some that got identified in 3rd grade, but now they're all together with different gaps, and like that's our current setup. So there's no consistency there. And again, it's fine, you have to say, hey, who skipped 6th grade, so this is the first time you're seeing this. So you have to kind of, fill in those gaps, which is fine, but you have to find the gaps too, based on what grade level they are. So that's the current model that we have.
So when we look at what is on the slide now, that is what is in the was in the high school program of studies. And then when we look at what it's going to look like in the future, it really gives parents a view of the progression from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And the beauty about what the team developed is really looking at the compacting in 4th grade based on the research, based on best practices, evidence-based research, as well as what the comparator schools are doing. And so really looking at that compacting in 4th and 5th grade, and then moving on. When we looked at the data, and Mr. Gillis and Mr. Silvas and Mr. Pfeiffer, they're math people, so of course they're into data. And Mr. Boyers and I love that. We could have spent hours and upon hours with them. But really, really looking at the data and seeing where are our kids now, and what do we need to do to close some of the gaps that we have created just because it is what it is. And so when we look at this progression, there are more students that in 9th grade, so a typical progression would be 7th grade math, 8th grade math, either Algebra 1A or Algebra 1. Because every child can learn algebra. Perhaps every child can't learn Algebra 1 in the course of 1 year. But over 2 years, they're going to be able to learn it. When we look at, when you finish Algebra 1, maybe you've matured a little bit. It's kind of clicked for you. You've gotten all those foundations. You have a choice to go into geometry. Maybe geometry because it's more abstract reasoning. You're not quite ready for that, so maybe you're going to go into Algebra 2. So it's giving students voice and choice and various pathways to accomplish their goal of learning math. The other thing is we really want, even though we require 3 years of math as a graduation requirement, we really want our kids to take advantage of all of our math courses, to take 4 years of math so that they're really prepared for their future.
So you see the progressions, and there's going to be outliers all the time, because maybe a child here in Math 8 is going to go into an honors class. Again, you're going to have your outliers, but there's multiple pathways, but this is essentially the kindergarten through 12th grade pathway, so that parents can see how that progresses. But again, allowing various entry points for the different courses. We added a financial algebra course this year because of a lot of our students that are going on to vocational or technical programs or going into the world of work. That financial algebra, they don't need an Algebra 2, which is a college, but they need the financial algebra to really understand that. And so as we look at the Chapter 339 that was presented to the board in November, as we look at the School to College and Careers and the STEM initiative, science, technology, engineering, and math, we really wanted to make sure that we were doing our due diligence to prepare all of our students for whatever their post-secondary programs are, whether it be work, 2-year, 4-year college, or careers. And so I think we've done a really good job. They've done a really good job of creating those pathways.
Just real quick, a common misconception right there. We are not tracking students. So when you look across that path, when you look linear, just said I'll talk about linear movement. I'm going to get to this next on the next slide. But students can move up and down the pathway. And so when we consider this recommendation to you all for consideration, we have to consider, one, this recommendation, but every recommendation we make impacts time, money, and people. So everything we do, we keep that end in mind. So as we go to the next slide, we have a recommendation in front of you, but how are we going to get students in the appropriate courses? We want to make sure that we're using the data to drive those decisions. It's the right course and the right fit. We talk a little bit about just that stretch. We want that educational math class to be just out of reach, where I feel a bit of a stretch right here, but it's not so much where I'm overwhelmed, or it's not so low where I'm just blazing right by. And so one of the things that we did in the core team, thank you, Dr. Walsh, was we talked about how are we going to gather the data that we have to make those recommendations. And so what we're proposing is the matrix that you see in front of you. And so, we have a fairly balanced matrix. We're talking about the PSSA assessment and even with the camera filter, the third CDT, which we're implementing at O-Block for the first time, that third CDT benchmark. We want to have that rich data that's norms-based, that we can understand how students are performing. Our readiness assessment, those are going to be either assessments that we're going to create internally through our core team, through our math folks, or when I get to a few slides in the future here, we may look to a resource that may have something similar that we can beg, borrow, and steal and use it to mold for us. Quarter 1 through 3 average of grades. So again, we want to understand how students are performing in the classroom and consider that option. And then the last piece is that teacher attribute. And as a core team, we're starting to narrow that attribute so that way it's not subjective. We're trying to say, what is it that we need our students to be doing? Are they doing their homework? Are they participating in class? Are they studying? Are those things that are clear and we can see that are observable that we can attain a score for to recommend that student the appropriate math pathway? And so this is the matrix that we have developed at this point in time. If the board so chooses to move on this, sorry, Mr. Hill, I saw you open my eye. All of this information, again, we talked about the word transparency from Dr. Howard earlier. This will all be shared with our parents. Last year we started that at O-Block. We really want our folks to know how we're making the recommendations that we're making. So when a parent has that calls and has that conversation with us, they have that pathway in mind, they can see the end in mind, they know how we're doing it so that we have a common conversation when we're having that dialogue. Mr. Hill?
For the minimum requirements, what's the schools that we're comparing to? What's your minimum math graduation requirements?
So most of them are 3 or 4, and we did some additional research on this slide right here. So one of the additional research points we did was we started to consider this notion of should our students who take that are junior high students or 8th graders taking honors algebra, should they attain a credit for taking a high school algebra 2 honors course? And so we looked at that. We wanted to understand what are those folks that we're comparing ourselves to, what are they doing? What we found in our research was there are 2 schools in our neighboring schools that are giving that credit, which are Upper St. Clair and Bethel Park.
Bethel Park's not, I just found out that on Friday.
Okay, so they're no longer, okay. So Upper St. Clair, Peters Township. So what we're seeing from those folks is that they're requiring 4 math graduation credits, but their credit for graduation for the conglomerate is also much higher. I think high school folks, 23.5 or 24 is our graduation requirement, 23.5. Most of those schools were 26, 27, 28 for their graduation requirement. And so what we're recommending as a math committee is that we want to award the opportunity to note that accelerated course on the transcript, but we don't feel comfortable at this point in time awarding that credit. What we feel is, as a math group, this is much bigger than us. We have to look through the organization and other vertical teams and start to have these conversations because we have foreign languages and other things that go on and have that ripple effect. And so again, since we're focusing on math, this is going to be our recommendation at this point in time. However, we're going to share this information with the other vertical teams that started today, as well as the other staff that are not a member of the leadership team on the 20th of January, and start to kind of get their feedback and input on this, because again, we recognize that ripple effect across the organization.
So I have a question. What if we want to, if we want to compare ourselves to these other districts, wouldn't we want to compare our graduation requirements accordingly?
And again, a great question. So when we talk about tonight, we're talking about program studies. So again, these are things that again, these are all things that are a bit bigger than a K-12 math review. That's a component of it. We want to understand that. We want to understand what are those requirements and what are those courses that are taking. What are those courses that are offered? You talked about a little bit earlier about the AP courses and have that comparative there. But again, as a math group, we just don't feel confident to speak on behalf of all the other vertical teams. But it is something we want to consider across those groups.
Matt and I and Dr. Hyland, we've already started conversations and looking at what other schools are offering in regards to course selection and graduation requirements. And it is a bigger conversation, and we believe it's another committee with representative groups so that we can come back to the board with a recommendation on this. So it is something that we're taking a close look at.
What is the current placement system for the students? You're showing us this grade that has these pieces to recommend where they're going next. What do we do now?
So it's relative to what we showed you, but there's some inconsistencies. So for O-Block, for example, so we collect the PSSA score, we collect the quarter 1 through 3 grade point average, but then from there we have our own in-house developed fluency assessment. So that's unique to us. Dr. Shulo assists us with that. We push it down to 6th grade, and that's how we collect our information. Plus, we have that teacher attribute. Again, we're finding that teacher attribute to be a bit jaded per se at times. Sometimes, if you have a Mrs. I'm not making light, but Mrs. Jones and Mr. Smith, their perception of how that attribute may be completely different, and it throws it a bit off. So, we're going to be considering that. Other schools have, again, a similar approach with the PSSA or, that element, but there's little discrepancies in between. We want to have that consistent approach the whole way through our organization so that way when you matriculate from building to building to building as a parent and as a student, you know what's expected of you. So there's a common, consistent approach to what we're doing.
I just want to, for elementary, one of the items that we looked at, I use 5th or 6th grade. Right now, we could potentially have our best math, 300 per graduating class. Our best math student sitting near our 300th student in the same class. We're asking the teacher to differentiate. We're talking about narrowing the range. In right now, 6th grade math is 6th grade math. 5th grade math is 5th grade math. We have exceptional teachers that make the difference. But we're looking at what are some of the opportunities based on research that we can expand that, especially when over 50% of our students are in the 4th and 5th quintile. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
So tonight we spoke on goal 2, and so as we consider again this program, this is comprehensive. It's more than just courses. It's more than just a matrix. Now the next step is to understand what are our current resources. Dr. Walsh just said we have some phenomenal teachers, but we have to give them the tools and resources to do their job efficiently and effectively. We've added some significant data points within different buildings, and we're moving in that direction, and we have to continue that progression. And so what you look at here is just a quick snapshot of the current resources that are sitting in our buildings. Why is this a problem? Well, the PA Core came out in 2014. So if you have a copyright that is below that, and even that 3 through 6 copyright 2015, those vendors are putting that information in from 2013, 2014 because they want to work a year in advance to sell their newest, best product. So a lot of our resources really aren't aligned with their standards-based or have that PA Core component. So we have, again, fantastic folks that are borrowing and stealing resources from other spaces to create a comprehensive math program for our students. That's not necessarily fair to them. It's not fair to our students. So the next phase that we're going to look to move to is a resource review.
Mr. Boyers?
Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify, if that's where they are, right, and then the PSSAs are testing to the core standards. So, I mean, just making that connection.
There's a connection there. We always want to be cognizant, and we tell our staff this too. The resource is not the curriculum. We have our written curriculum. Our math experts have written our curriculum. But we want to have that resource that's going to enhance that opportunity and give students those rich experiences. And so that's what we're moving to next in the next phase of this. So actually, this coming, it's 2 Mondays now from the removed, we're going to have an extensive day of vendors coming in and presenting to us. This process started over the summer, so we were emailing staff members over the summer saying, hey, what are some resources our neighboring schools are using, or things that you've heard that are exemplar? As those folks would give me those names, I would be reaching out to those vendors and getting sample resources. Once we got sample resources, we put them into the hands of our teachers. And so they've reviewed snippets of resources. And it's impossible to review everything in a short period of time because these are, resources are so extensive. But our folks have reviewed these items, and we've narrowed our list to those 5 on the screen. So on that Monday, each vendor's going to come in. We're going to be operating out of 2 rooms. We have a evaluation tool that we've made for our core team that assesses a lot of the work that we're doing in the district. And we're going to evaluate those vendors according to that tool. It's going to be a head-banging kind of day because everyone's presenting their best to you, but we're going to stay focused and maintain what we're doing. And our goal from that day is to look at what our data suggests and to try to narrow our recommendation to probably 2 or 3. We'll look at where that natural cut line falls in our data. From there, we're going to reach out to local school districts that are utilizing those resources, because when someone comes in and gives you their spiel, they're selling you the Rolls Royce, right? The beauty of what we want to do is we want to go and step into other classrooms. We want to see the resource being utilized in action. We want to hear from students in other schools about how they feel about that resource, but more importantly, we want to hear from the teachers too. Because there are times where districts have been bamboozled and they've gotten a great resource because it was that Rolls Royce, and then the teachers go to implement it and it's all for nothing. The importance of that resource review as well is we have administrators in that room, but we have about 20 folks in that room. I'd say of the 20 folks, we have about 12 to 13 teachers as a part of that, because of what we're hearing from our feedback from our staff was some of the resources that we currently have, that was not the recommendation, and that's a problem. That's absolutely a problem. And so we want to recognize that, we want to acknowledge their expertise, and obviously gather their feedback.
Are you also looking at ways the technology that our students have been provided to?
Absolutely. So Mr. Lilletta, he's my main man, but he's going to be in that room as well, because we have, again, as folks move their resources to online platforms, we have to be considering a clever single user sign-on, different chat applets. We have a product right now at O'Block that the tech support is absolutely horrendous, and so we have to understand those pieces. So we want his expertise as a technology director in that room as well. And so absolutely we're looking towards that and what those opportunities can mean for our staff and students. We'll be coming back to the board here, so we'll be hearing back from us shortly. We're thinking March or April we'll come back and present our findings, our recommendation to you all. And then you can see kind of from there our plan for if the board elects to so choose and support that resource, how we're going to go forward and provide a PD for the implementation of that resource. And currently we have about $450,000 budgeted to provide that opportunity. So. As you heard back here, as you heard here, we're very excited. I'm, for lack of better terms, pumped about the momentum that we're making. Everything that we're doing, and all the work that we're doing, it impacts every student across Plum Borough School District. I mean, that is, when you step back and think about that, it's such a mesmerizing opportunity that we have at our fingertips. And I feel that the core team and our expanded team have done a fantastic job with the research and collaborating for the betterment of our district. So I personally am thrilled and pumped and more so proud to share this with you all. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a natural segue. We're in our studies.
Absolutely.
Don't go anywhere. Yeah?
Turn off. Say bye though.
Before Mr. Boyers begins, I would just take just 10 seconds and say, our administrative team, working with our department leaders, working with our faculty and staff, we did a complete overhaul in our handbooks, program of studies, building out a code of conduct last year, and we're continuing to make improvements from year to year. And there was a lot of work and thought that went behind their presentations this evening. Mr. Boyers, all yours.
Thank you. So tonight we're going to present to you the OBLOG Program of Studies. Mrs. Fight and I are very proud of this document. Like Dr. Walsh said, it was a complete overhaul of the document from last year to this year. And so again, one of the things that she and I talked about as an administrative team is that notion of continuous improvement. And so we spent over 180 hours in that document last year. We're extremely proud, and we did not hesitate to go back and attack it again this year. And so, the goals of our program of studies is to provide information to our students and our parents and guardians to make sure that they have that opportunity. It's to give students a snapshot of the day of a life. Transition from 6th grade to 7th grade, that's a big transition. And even though we have the beauty of a shared campus, it's still a significant transition. So we want students to have that opportunities to experience that firsthand by looking at that document. Yes, the noise of the flip page, that's fantastic. But also, considering what other opportunities we can provide for those students. The ease of use is important. It's a comprehensive document. You'll see that in our handbook, it's in our code of conduct. So we have built-in links all throughout the document. So if you're a parent and you want to understand about Math 7 current, you can click right there and go right there and bypass anything else. And so that's another beauty of that. And another piece is it has to be aesthetically pleasing. You don't want to look at a document that looks like this. I want something that's going to capture my attention and really bring to life what's going on behind the walls of the building. And so we feel that what we're presenting to you tonight has done that. Just high level, some things that we did this year, an effort for continuous improvement. We're updating our parent message. So one of the means last year when Mrs. Fight and I considered communication, we sent out a lot of written communication. Sometimes she tells me, Ashley, bullet. I get it, I'm a talker and I love to talk about what's going on in our building. So we changed our mode last year to a video. So again, this year we updated that video. We wanted parents if they didn't want to have to read what's going on in OBLOG, they could have a nice 1.5 minute snapshot of who we are and what we're doing. Another piece, another big change for this year, although very simple, was we started to put some faces with names. And so as you click through our office staff, the counselors, the nurse, folks that a lot of students will come in contact with immediately, you can start to associate right away, who is that person? Who is that person that's out there greeting so-and-so? Who is Ms. Jagodzinski? How do I know who she is? Again, it's a sense of relief for that student. If they see that, it takes that anxiety level down. And so again, a quick feature, but a new feature that we feel is going to enhance the experience. Scheduling timeline, again, we want to be transparent in how we operate and what we do. And so we want parents to know ahead of time what our planning process is. It's right there for you at your fingertips. So beyond that document that's put out through the app and other communications, but again, that comprehensive document. One of the course recommendations that we're making is we want to eliminate our Foundations of Reading class. The reason that we feel strong about this recommendation is that we currently support 98% of our 7th grade population in the General Education English 7 classroom. During that experience, students are going to experience good quality writing, but they're also tackling that nonfiction text. When we consider text, nonfiction is more difficult than fiction itself. And so we feel by eliminating this course and pushing those students that would qualify for this course into our Reading 7 with the appropriate supports and services, that we can provide those students the least restrictive environment, as well as provide them a quality, rigorous Reading 7 opportunity. And so we're making that recommendation.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
How many students are you talking about?
7th grade, roughly 13 to 15. It fluctuates every year. And so those are students that are sitting on that bubble. This is not our students that would receive a pull-out style education. This is kind of that bubble group of students that are just need a little bit of additional support. But our thought process is, well, they're already pushed into mainstream English. And if they can be pushed into mainstream English with the appropriate supports and services and experience success, then why can they not do it in reading when the text is?
What is the appropriate support and how is that working? So, I mean, you have 15 kids going into one class, you have them going into 3 or 4 classes. How do you divide that up, and who's helping that classroom teacher? Because, again, we just identified that this is a sort of a difficult transitional time for
Mhm.
this age of children.
Yep.
And I don't want to leave one kid
Sure.
left out there.
Sure. So again, I'll answer your question, but to go back again, if they're successful in English 7, they can also be successful in that reading 7. So what we do on the back end is through that scheduling process, we're constantly pulling that data, we're reviewing supporting documents such as IEPs, 504s, things of that nature. We understand who those students are immediately. We do not let our master, our computerized scheduler touch those students. Mrs. Fight and/or I hand schedule those students to make sure that they're landing in the appropriate course with the appropriate supports and services. So one of the supports and services that we have for English 7 is this co-taught classroom. We're supporting that by pushing in a special education teacher who's able to assist in support. We're able to work that continuum co-teaching model and support those students. So with the recommendation of eliminating that, we would provide that exact same service in Reading 7, which hasn't happened before. So again, through that co-taught model, we would be able to support those students in that capacity.
So I think to clarify too, there's 2 classes. A 7th grade student takes a reading class and an English class. So the reading class is where the foundational piece is coming in, but as Mr. Boyers mentioned, the English class is the more intensive class, but there is no foundational English class. Everyone's taking the same course. So our idea is that, we would follow the same model for English and provide the same level of supports, ensuring that our most highly qualified reading teachers are the ones teaching those students, making sure that they're getting scheduled with the right supports in that class.
And then I would just end for the program of studies from our standpoint. What you see in front of you has, again, we talked about those feedback loops earlier. Our staff has had input and feedback in what you're seeing in front of you. So it's not just Mrs. Fight and I sitting in the room together virtually working through to create this document. So again, we're proud of that our staff had involvement and say and input in what you see in front of you. So we appreciate your consideration.
So tonight we are really excited about presenting some exciting new opportunities for our young students. The list of changes that is in the board doc will also be listed in the program of studies for transparency. We want our parents to be able to see what has changed and know how the classes that we're offering for them. So we're going to get started. In our JROTC program, we are eliminating the journeys in space and histories of aviation and adding the principles of flight. This is a 7-year rotation. It's a curriculum that's already set by the junior ROTC. And art, we are renaming AP Studio Art to AP Drawing, and AP Photography is being renamed to AP 2D Art and Design to better align it with the AP website. Computer science, you guys know that this field changes rapidly, and we are so lucky. We have Tamar McPherson as our department chair, and she's phenomenal, and she really took a look at this. And what we're doing is we are changing the 2D game design and 3D game design. We're combining them and replacing it with video game design with JavaScript. Tamar and I were talking about this, and I don't know if the board, if you realize this, but the video game industry is bigger than all professional sports combined. So we really want to make sure that our students have the opportunity to get involved in this. Coding with Python and advanced coding with Python are combined and replaced with the Computer Science 1 coding with Python. And the addition of introduction to cybersecurity. And this class, this is pretty exciting. They're going to talk about digital citizenship and digital hygiene. And the culminating project will be a simulated hack. Now, I don't know what that is. and I'm going to change all my passwords before they do it. I'm pretty sure I may be a target. But it's really exciting, the changes that we're making and moving forward with that. In the math department, in line with our new sequence, we're eliminating pre-algebra and intro to geometry, and we're adding the financial algebra. This is a real world class. They talk about stock markets, the consumer market, the credit market, automobile ownership, and income taxes. I'm not sure that some of our kids understand what 19% interest means on a credit card. And so we want to make sure that when they come out of high school, they are equipped for the real world. And I believe that this class will do a lot to help them. In music, we are adding, we're proposing to add a Partners in Music. We have right now a Partners in Art and a Partners in PE. This is where typical students work along with our life skills students, and they plan lessons and implement them. And I got to tell you, this year we had a wonderful young lady come to Mrs. Sedlak and I, and she said, boy, I'd really like if we could bring those fifth grade or the elementary life skills up from center. And we made it happen, and it's phenomenal. Those kids come up here, they go into the art room, our kids are in there working with them, our life skills kids are working with them. It's a wonderful program, and we're thrilled to be adding the Partners in Music. In science, we're proposing eliminating the introduction to physical science and adding a natural science class. This is an inquiry-based class. It includes biology, anatomy, chemistry, earth and space, and physical science. We really feel that this will give those students in ninth grade a better opportunity to prepare for the biology keystones. In social studies, we're realigning the AP Economics back into the social studies department. It was in business. We feel that it's better placed in the social studies department. And technology education, we've got some big changes. We are eliminating intro to materials and processing and engineering and adding graphic and visual communication. This is like woodshop on steroids. I mean, they are going to design and follow it all the way through a finished product. And they're going to use all kinds of crazy stuff, and they're going to use some traditional tools also. So it's really, really going to be an awesome addition. We're looking to eliminate the advanced material processing and engineering and adding the digital electronics. This gives the students an introduction to electrical engineering and its industrial uses. The class I think that I'm the most excited about is the next one, the addition of Inventors of Tomorrow. Bottom line, students are going to find a problem, invent something to solve the problem. And I think they can use a whole bunch of mediums to do this, and I think it's going to be a class that's really going to draw a lot of the kids into this that wouldn't typically take these courses. So that's our technology education. We are also eliminating our foundation courses in all of our subjects. We feel that the co-taught model works best, and we're going to do the co-teaching in math and ELA, and we honestly believe that this will provide a better inclusion experience for our special education students. Our English, biology, and algebra Keystone Prep courses will be held in the summer. Now, this isn't summer school. We already offer this program in the summer, and it has just produced tremendous results. Our kids have done a great job. They come in for a couple of weeks, they're in intensive instruction, and then they take the summer Keystone. So we're transitioning this over because of the results that we're seeing with those summer Keystone scores, and we're excited about that. Also, we are looking to, right now, we're in the application process of adding AP Honors Spanish and Anatomy to our college and high school courses. We continue to look for opportunities for Plum families to, number one, save money, and number two, get a jump on their college career. Last year, I believe we reported $1.3 million in savings to Plum families through our college and high school program, and we continue to look for opportunities to offer those credits. So those are our changes for, our proposed changes for the 2019, or 2020-21. Yes.
I have a question about the addition of natural science. So that's going to be all ninth grade, and that'll align us better with PSSA's, Keystones.
Absolutely. So those kids that come in, no, not online. It's not an online course. Those students who take the natural science course will predominantly be our ninth graders. And they're going to come from O'Block Junior High, and they're going to take the natural science course, and then they're going to the following year either take the biology or they'll take the intermediate science. So those students are going to get another year to prepare for the biology.
Which is pretty standard in most districts, correct?
It is, yes.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Other than, so I am dead against the elimination of the foundation courses for a variety of reasons. One is I keep hearing from tons of sources about this ratio. I would like that explained to me. What is the ratio that we're going to be this co-teaching, and again, back to how many kids, and if you need the extra help, now the only time you get it is in the summer?
No, okay. So the ratio, when we go to the co-teaching model, okay, the ratio is going to be 1/3 special ed, 2/3 typical students. That's what we're going to be shooting for. And so we're going to be offering co-teaching model in the math and ELA areas, which is where students have disabilities. You either have a math disability or you have a reading disability. So there'll be co-teachers in the math and the ELA. The other courses right now that offer foundation courses, like a civics class, we're going to incorporate those students who would traditionally take foundation into those civics classes, and it'll allow us to give them a better alignment of the two curriculums.
But with the same 1/3 ratio?
Say that again?
With the same 1/3 ratio?
Yeah, well, yeah, we won't go beyond that.
Are we gonna create a policy that's gonna at least set that guideline and standard, so we don't have classes overcrowded?
I think there's some misinformation there. When we look at a co-taught classroom, that's a special education teacher and a content area
I totally
teacher.
understand what it is.
And that's where the 1/3 ratio to 2/3 ratio is. When you eliminate foundations in the other courses, you have much less. You have probably about 5 students that may have an IEP with about 20 students, 22 students that are typically developing, so that they're spread across the board. And it allows for greater individualization in those classes. The Chapter 14 requires that all students are exposed to the regular education curriculum with adaptations. That hasn't been happening in this district. And what has been happening is you have an entire class of special education students with special needs that are being taught by a regular education teacher that is not a pull-out resource classroom. And so we are trying to rectify the situation so that we are in compliance with Chapter 4 guidelines and Chapter 14 guidelines, and really do what's in the best interest of the students. That co-taught teaching is really important in the English and the math where the disabilities lie. In the other areas, we have looked at some of the progressions, as Mr. Official has said, to provide our students with better opportunities to progress with the regular education curriculum with adaptations made in those classrooms.
And we know through research that inclusion works when it's done right, and we want to do it right.
I'm concerned about the staffing levels in this building. Are we gonna have enough staff to do that?
I believe we will. I believe we will.
Well, I would say from the staffing level, you determine that. Sometimes we just do it just based off the number of teachers that we've had before, the year before, or previously. We have to do it based off the number of student requests.
Right.
And so the staffing process will happen after you folks approve the program of studies. That is how staffing is supposed to happen. You put it out there, the kids put their courses that they want to take, we take that information, and we determine what staffing needs we need. If we need an additional teacher or an additional 2 teachers that fit within the guidelines that have been previously established, then we come back to this board and say, from a staffing perspective, we're down 2 teachers. We need an additional 2 teachers. That's where you have to make that determination, and that's where it's supposed to fit into the budget process. And so
What we're trying to do is move up the program of studies. That's why we're doing it in January, so we can make sure that it aligns with our budgetary perspective. When you go to approve in June, we already know that you've approved the staff ahead of time. So we've kind of done it like, pardon my French, but ass backwards around here. We just took the number of teachers and that's what we got. Now, we should do it based off of the data. What are our kids saying? What I'd love, I would love for someone to come to me and say, I have 15 sections of the Holocaust, and I have to hire a teacher because Mrs. Rochelle Dunn can only teach 6 classes. So we have a bunch of other classes. What I think we have to do is get kids interested in taking electives so that I can come to you and say, hey, I need more teachers. But we're not going to come to you and say we need more teachers if we don't need them. So our job is to provide the best program of studies that we possibly can for our kids. Then it's the teacher's job and the counselor's job, and quite frankly, the principal's job, to get those kids to sign up for those courses. You know, that is their job. And then it's your job, the way I see it, I don't want to be presumptuous, for you to say, I can't, Dr. Highland, we cannot afford that many teachers, or Dr. Highland, we can't afford those teachers. And we're just going to tell you what the data says what we need. Now, there may be some interpretations of what a class size should be. We're going based off of the recommendations that have been made in the past. If you want to lower those class size recommendations, do it. Set policy, set it at 22, we'll meet that. But we're thinking that it works, the data is indicating that it works, and we haven't even put in some of the programs that we'd like to. We'd like to see if they actually work and whether we're being efficient or not. So that would be my response to that. We will base the number of teachers that we need based off the course requests that our kids ask for.
That brings me to my next question, online classes. There's a lot of parents that are unhappy with, that's their kids' elective choices. Because we only offer so many sections in high school, and then that's it, and then the kids have to take it online. Psychology is one I've heard over and over and over.
We have students who...
Not from 1 or 2 people that I talk to in the community. I've heard it repetitively for months.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
No, in fact, I'm just trying to think. I don't know that we have any classes that have been full and we have not offered it here in the brick and mortar and said, if you want this course, you have to take it here. We have, when we did the scheduling last year, I believe that we filled most of those requests. Now, there were some requests where students wanted things that they just couldn't work in the schedule, but I'm not familiar. I'd say we just have the opposite. We have students that are sitting in brick and mortar classes who get the idea that, oh, if I take this online, I can sit around and do nothing and then do some work at night. That's been my experience. We do have some online offerings that we don't have in the building, but we have online offerings in physical education. We have online offerings in a lot of different areas. So I'm not familiar of anybody that couldn't get sociology because our classes were full and we said do it online. Now, it could be a situation where they couldn't get sociology because it didn't fit in their schedule because they wanted these other classes. And so the option was online.
I've heard a lot of band is only at a certain time of the day, so that's restrictive to those students instead of offering more sections of that and more
well, you can't offer more sections of band because the band has to meet together.
Right.
So there are singletons where you have to schedule, band has to be one class, chorus, they have to all come in, and then you find those students, like those music students, also they don't just want band, but they want this, and they want the AP Music Theory, which is only offered 1 period a day. So yes, there are situations where students cannot get schedules because of their request and classes that we have to offer as singletons. So the online option is just that. It's an option for them, and I think it's a good thing. They say, look, I want a sociology class, but I can't take it because I want AP Music Theory. Well, we can offer it to you, but it's got to be an online.
I would add this too. It is not abnormal being a high school principal in 2 different places, it's not abnormal for, and it's usually the higher achiever kids who have difficulty getting everything that they want into their schedule because they are requesting so much. Oftentimes, as they get older into 11th and 12th grade, it becomes more singularized. There's single pins that are only offered, and they want to take a significant number of those, and there's so many slots. So for example, let's just take an AP music class. You may have, let's say, and we've run sections below 10. I think one of your music classes, AP music, what was it, like 4 or 5 or something?
Yeah,
We still
4 or
ran
5.
it. The question is, do we get another teacher to run another section of 4 or 5 at $65,000, or actually $75,000? Those are questions that you have to ask. And so the goal should be, Ms. Stepnick, I agree with you, we should try and get every single kid, every single class that they want. But the same would be true, I'd love to get a kid, a tutor for every single class. But you have to make, informed decisions. But at the end of the day, you have to do what the very best you can for the kids. So by eliminating the foundations classes, we are now opening up more sections for teachers to be able to teach other things and create other options in a master schedule.
I'd like a list of those options, and I'd also like to see the research that says cutting these foundation classes will be helpful.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
That will be an easy one.
And I'd like to see the list of the options. I have a problem with I want to know what the options are.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What are
the
the
options of
options
what?
by eliminating these foundation classes?
He's saying more sections of the other English classes. So if it's foundations of English, you might have more sections of English courses that are able to be offered.
And so
But you're not gonna know that till the schedule.
we started this in November when we started talking to teachers. We actually started looking into the foundation courses last spring. Because we could see that there were some trends, like Mrs. Sedlak said, we're getting a lot of special ed kids going into these courses. And so we started asking questions, why are we doing this, how are we doing this, is this the best way to do this? What I believe is by eliminating those foundation courses, we will best use our resources to provide the best inclusion opportunities for our special ed students possible. I'm an old special ed teacher. My passion are special ed students, and I guarantee you that I would never do anything that would hold them back or not give them a viable experience here at Plum High School. So when we look at this eliminating foundation courses, we think we're using it. Now we're going to be able to offer more co-taught classes in math and in ELA because of the staffing. And those kids, that's where they have a disability, is in math or in reading. So they're going to get that support. So if they're being supported in those areas, when they go into these other classes, they're going to be able to participate in that curriculum more robustly.
So again, I would just ask that we have a conversation, or there should be something that we know what that ratio will be, and it's not going to be a goal, it's going to be what we're sticking to, not only for our special ed kids and their needs, but also the classroom teachers and the other students in the classroom. I mean, I think it's something
Absolutely.
we should be giving to them in writing.
You know, I gotta be honest with you. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody in this building, teacher or student, speak of special education students like they were a liability. When you have a class that there's an inclusion, it's good to have students of varying abilities and varying experiences, and it brings together, I believe, a better experience in the classroom. So again, we want a good inclusion experience for these special ed students, and that's what we're going to work towards.
Can I add one thing too? When in my previous district, we had what was referred to as modified classes, and it was the same exact thing as the foundations. And this was 16 years ago. And the district made the decision to get rid of the modified classes because what was happening, it was determined, basically, when you say rising tide raises all boats, the tide was lowering, and the expectations for those kids was lowering. Instead of raising the expectations for those kids and having those kids meet those expectations, basically, it was being dumbed down. And that is not what we need. We need teachers that have the ability to be able to go in and differentiate. And if there is a teacher that has a problem with going in and being able to differentiate, if they can't differentiate for learning styles, then, because every kid learns differently. Some are visual, some are auditory, some are kinesthetic, they all learn differently. Special education kids learn differently. The idea that we're gonna pigeonhole all special education kids into one course, that is, I will, Mrs. Demick, I will get you the research on that, and it'll be voluminous.
I want to know about the ratio. I've heard more about this ratio in the
What's the
last
ratio
couple of
you're
weeks.
asking
The
for?
people they want to know what the ratios are. So I've heard it more and more. I've heard it from parents. I want to know more about it. And
Can
then
I ask a question while we're on this subject? I'm just curious, have we talked to the parents of the children who the foundations is going to be eliminated? Are they aware that this is gonna happen?
Those conversations will occur at the IEP transition meetings.
Yep, which we just did.
And Dr. Reinier Hershey and Mr. Fischel and his team and I have been in communication. Mr. Boyer, Mrs. Feit, Dr. Reinier Hershey has been involved in those conversations. It is what is in the best interest of our students. It is evidence-based and research-based best practice. Everyone has been invited to the table. We'll be talking to parents through the IEP, through the transition process, to explain all of this to them. It is what, as a parent of a special needs child, I have fought for my own son, and I will fight for any child to be included, to be given the opportunities to belong, and to be given the regular curriculum that is provided to everyone else. And so that's something that, as Mr. Fischel is passionate about, I am passionate about. I think Dr. Reinier Hershey, Mr. Boyers, Mrs. Feit, the team, the teachers that we've talked to in the department meetings, for the most part have been supportive. There are ones that have questions, and again, those are things that until we have students selecting courses and we know the actual numbers, we can't do anything. We can guess and we can, but we know what the research says with a 1/3 to 2/3 ratio. We know what is out there, and that's our commitment to our students and to our
And
families.
we didn't have foundation courses for every course that's offered here. So it really would, when you talk about options, when you had a special education student who had to go into those foundation courses, they were being pigeonholed, pigeonholed into those schedules. This is gonna open that up to them and give them more opportunities.
And I was only asking because my assumption would be that parents would probably be very
Absolutely.
favorable.
We do transition meetings in the spring, and we sit down as the high school staff and we meet with all of the parents of students coming in from 8th grade who have IEPs and talk about concerns and scheduling, and we explain these kind of things to them. We do it personally. I think the transition meetings go about a week and a half, and we just block those times out and we're there. And we might be answering questions about chicken nuggets at lunchtime, or how does my kid know which bus to get on? And then we get into curricular questions, and our goal is to reassure those parents.
I just have one more question on this. Do we know what other districts, specifically with the districts we like to compare ourselves to now, what they're doing? Do they have these foundation classes? Have they moved away from them?
Well, we do know that North Allegheny does not have them. As Dr. Highland had just indicated, they had gone to inclusion quite some time ago. But we can do a little bit of research.
Well, Lebanon got rid of them. When we looked at the program of studies, this is the trend, because again, with IDEA, with the chapter 14 guidelines, with the inclusive environment, it is the move of what is best for children, and endorsed by the Bureau of Special Education. They look at those types of things when you audit your students audit your programs.
I just want to make sure we have the right staffing. That's all I have concern about.
I appreciate the focus on what you guys are looking to the experts for, and then I know your focus on special education, your professional focus, Mr. Boyer's professional focus, Dr. Hershey's professional focus on special education. And I think from a board's perspective, we have to trust in that, and we have to recognize your expertise and the expertise that you're looking to, and trying to abide by what the state is telling us to do. And then what we're saying, if we do scheduling right, then we're gonna find out what the students need, and then we're gonna know what our staffing needs to be in response to that. So it
We
seems-
do think with the addition of some of these courses, we're excited to talk to all of our students about, these new classes, the coding classes, the inventors of tomorrow. We're gonna be promoting these courses, get these kids to take these classes. So I think it's gonna be a good thing.
I would like to hear the parents' feedback on cutting the foundation. Do you think this will help retain our special education students and possibly even bring some back into our district by making this change? Do you think it will have that kind of impact?
Absolutely.
Yeah, again, what happens now, and like Mr. Boyer said, we don't like the word tracking. But right now, when a special education student is scheduling and there's only 4 foundation courses offered, they got to go into one of those 4. Well, in that department, there might be 15 electives, but they had to choose from those 4 foundations. So now it's going to open that up, it's going to give them more choices, and I think it would be a welcoming experience for students.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it also, when it creates that they have to be in those foundation courses, it dictates what the schedule is going to look like for their day.
Absolutely.
It doesn't allow them freedom of
Absolutely.
student choice, it doesn't allow that, but it also puts
Yeah.
populations together.
And then what happens is those same groups
Yep,
of
that's
kids
what
are
I
in the
mean.
same
Yep.
classes, and that doesn't make
It's not
for
fair.
anything.
It's also advantageous for those who aren't special education students in those classrooms.
Absolutely.
Does that foundation not allow, I'm forgetting the analogy, to stretch in math? They're not stretching, right? And this, now they'll have that opportunity.
We want to improve, we want to increase the rates and support them at the same time.
Great analogy, by the way.
Can I ask you another question? Did I read we have US history, AP US history?
We do have,
Are we?
yes.
How many, I thought the teacher that taught that is.
We didn't get any requests for that. I think last year when we did.
As I read it in there, it's like.
Yeah, we have it,
Is that an old one?
and it'll be on the scheduling sheet, but last year I think there were 3 kids that requested it.
What we've opted to do with the AP US History and the AP Economics is offer them every other year. And so that'll be in the program of studies because we have not offered those courses in a very long time. And so we think that if we offer it every other year, hopefully we can build those courses because they are good courses for those students that are going into humanities or the social sciences. They're really good courses, and so we figured if we advertise it, that maybe we can get enough for a class every other year and really benefit the students who would like to take it. So again, we're looking at strategies so that we can really keep them and not drop them, because it's important to be able to take that rigorous course.
I think there's some great programs in here. Do we have the resources to make sure that we can do this right and make sure that our kids stay excited and engaged?
I believe we do, but I think like Dr. Highland said, we have to look at those course requests. We have to look at where those kids are going and how we can schedule, but I feel that we do.
In terms of resources, staffing wise, you'll find out.
Staffing
Yeah.
and whatever
But other
software
resources,
was where.
Yeah.
the principals are responsible for coming up with a zero-based budget, with the idea that they are going to assume that the program studies will be approved with those. They should be reflecting that in their budgets that are going to John, which again should be part of the budgetary process. This should all be streamlined. They're projecting what they need. They have the program studies that's been approved. They get the course requests, and that should all be part of the budget process, which you will have the pleasure of approving when the time comes.
And part of it is that evolution of that department and that curriculum. So when we talked about technology education, we talked about eliminating this course and adding this course. So that's how we did that. We want to make sure that we are offering our students, like with the computer science, that changes every 2 years. You think about technology and how quickly it changes. Technology education, the same thing. So we're looking at, okay, we're not adding all of these new ones. We're replacing and we're evolving, and we're making sure that it is 21st century learning.
How soon can we get the word out and kids register to find out how much interest there is in these classes?
Well, we're going to meet on Thursday to discuss the scheduling process and how we can do that. And I believe the hope is that we can have something beginning of March, end of February. So.
We have moved it up a month, Mr. Hill. So
That's good.
Before, I think it was February or March last year.
Yeah.
we did
Sooner than
those
better.
studies. So we're trying to get it earlier and earlier.
If you approve the program of studies at this month's meeting, then the day after, we'll post it. We'll have it cleaned up, ready to go. Parents will be able to go on there, see it, talk to their students. We'll hold meetings. Our guidance counselors will start meeting with, you meet with the seniors first because they got to get what they got to get. Then we meet with the juniors, sophomores, and then we meet with the incoming freshmen. We'll have parent meetings, and we'll start the scheduling. Mr. Laletta, he does this amazing thing with online scheduling, and so we should have all of that. All right?
Are we going to have study halls with 250 kids in next year? That's the goal, to not do that?
The joy would be for
Yeah.
those kids not to want to take those study halls and they want to take electives.
Yeah.
That kids,
Yeah.
like, we want to be able to come to you and say, you know what? 250 kids decided that they didn't want a study hall, they wanted to take an elective instead. That's our problem.
Yeah.
We gotta
Mr.
get people
Gardner
that
worked
wanna take
really
electives.
hard. Mr. Gardner worked really hard this semester to break down those big study halls. We don't want the kids going from one room to the next room to the next room. You know, day one, I have study hall in this room, day two, I have study hall. So he worked
No, I
really
think that it's not about the location, it's about the number of students, and yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes, we are trying to eliminate study halls by making the courses.
But you're not going to be able to eliminate them.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna be able to
To
eliminate.
decrease them.
Yes,
Decrease
but
them.
the 200
kid says, hey, I have a study hall, I want to go take cybersecurity.
Yes,
All right, so.
but some kids want study halls.
Well, sure.
And that's okay.
Yes.
Do we want to suspend this and get some more information on this, or do we have 5 to move this forward?
Yeah.
Is that 5? Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Rick, did you go through the civic consent? You good on that? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Good, okay. Code of conduct?
Yep, everything's
Good?
Yep.
Okay. So we're on the athletic strategic plan, is that where we are?
Doing-
God, I don't even know where I am.
Do we have to do the student handbook?
Done?
Student handbook, do we need to do that?
That's what I was asking, did we?
We didn't.
No,
do
we
that
didn't
yet.
got that far yet.
Dr. Walsh, you killed me.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Student handbook.
Yeah, the principal here.
Student handbooks.
I asked.
Somebody talk about a student handbook.
Yeah.
Another victim.
I'll jump up, we'll compact it, that's on that.
There you
So
go.
for,
All right, you got a minute.
all right, no, so we updated basically everything that needed updated in the K-4 handbook.
I'll have
Some major
access.
changes that we had was, in the center handbook, we added information about the Title I program and it being school-wide. And then in the Pivot handbook, we added in a section about it being a Title I-like school as it's been designated this year. So that's really and changed the board members' names to the current board. Those are the major changes we made in the handbooks. Hats off to Dr. Walsh last year, moving us forward, getting this handbook updated and into the state that it's in now. That made this year much more easier to do, because we just kind of had to go through and adjust some things that we needed to adjust, so.
Then thank you for the Title I.
Yeah, so we're.
That was a good improvement
Yeah,
for our
we
district.
were good that we did that, so.
So like the kindergarten handbook.
Oh,
Yeah, the kindergarten handbook.
Which is new this year.
Yes, it is new, and it is digital for 2020. We're actually moving into a digital 2020. And so, yes, it's a resource that is sharing similar information than what we used to share, but we've removed some of the information that was about readiness. We've updated it with some new readiness information to reflect the standards and the benchmarking that we use for our students currently as kindergarten students. We have also linked the handbooks for the parents. If they're looking at this as a digital file, they can click on the link for our handbooks. We've included the information so that they are ready to be a student in the Plum Borough School District about immunizations and transportation and those things that they need in order to be ready to go on the first day of school. we are working with our kindergarten team, actually tomorrow morning, bright and early.
8:10.
Yeah.
At Pivot.
At Pivot. We will meet tomorrow morning to discuss the plans for bringing in our newest class. I think it will be the class of 2033, if I recall correctly, 2032 maybe. And so, we are continually looking at the information that we're sharing with parents and exactly what that looks like so that they are ready, and we can answer as many questions before they even get here, as a resource that we can just share with them digitally.
Do you anticipate kindergarten growth being the same, less, or more? And I'm specifically interested because of the consolidation of the Catholic schools again in the eastern area.
From what I understand, and I'm not a member of the parish, but I can tell you that the word on, I won't say the street, but it looks like it's
word on Facebook.
There you go. Okay, so if we're really going to use Facebook as our source of information, it does look like that decision has not been yet announced. And so I think once we know whether or not one of the local schools is going to be combined or consolidated, then we will have some idea of whether that's going to have an impact. At this point, it looks as if St. John's is still a steady program out there that is still a viable part of our community preschool program, and they certainly are a good partner for us as a kindergarten partner as well.
Yeah, so do you anticipate numbers being the same, less?
Yes, it's been very consistent the past couple of years.
And one of the parent, who they are very involved and active in the St. John's Church, I believe that could be confusing with the schools merging, but it's really, there's 4 parishes merging.
The parishes have already
But
been
she said that
sharing.
they're getting ready to do more, whatever
Correct,
that means.
that
But
is
there
correct.
was-
So
I
for-
said at school, and she said no.
I do think that there is some talk, and maybe I'm wrong, but I do think that there is some talk of some merging of the schools, including St. Joe's, if I'm
Right.
correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But that is my understanding, is there is some talk of that, but again, without being involved with their school specifically, I don't know whether that would impact their programs that they offer, because they have a very big preschool program as well, and so I'm not sure where they would draw that line.
The only thing I would add to this is, I meet with Mr. Catron, the principal, he's principal at St. John's and St. Joe's, and we're looking at their enrollment, especially last year, from grades 1 through 8, their enrollment's between 8 and 12 kids in each grade. So it was something that was eye-opening when we're looking at services.
Right, but a good number of Plum Borough families utilize Mother of Sorrows,
Yeah.
and a couple of the parishes outside of the district. So, and Mother of Sorrows has not been a positive experience for a lot of families. Transportation, it's a little more rigorous. They have a different administrative structure.
My only point was their enrollment concern.
Yeah, sure.
And this information, once approved, will be put in the flip books. Flip books, the advantage is any device, it's formatted, and it makes it readily available for parents or anyone in the community. Dr. Sheila?
Okay, and echoing what O-Block and Mr. Boyers and Mrs. Fight said, that we put a lot of time, energy, and effort into Holiday Parks handbook to make this as interactive as possible and informative. But 3 items I'd like to point out, in addition to what you see there with the changes that we're excited for, academically speaking. First off, you saw tonight with the proposed MAP pathways, language was added in regards to the compacted 5-6 and the eventual 6 pre-algebra within our handbook. And if that does pass, then we will keep that in place. The second item I'm excited about is working with Mr. DeLuz, the department chair for music, and Mrs. Boyle. We are looking to add chorus as a regular music selection at Holiday Park, so expanding the performing arts there for students. Right now, you're probably aware, a student that takes chorus, it is a club, and they will meet during Discovery and sometimes after school. Next year, we're looking to actually make that a selection for students. So we were thrilled at that. And Mrs. Boyle and Mr. DeLuz, they have been working on the curriculum, and I plan shortly to review that with them. So we believe we're at the tip of the iceberg in regards to programming that we can offer at Holiday Park, and we want to continue growing that. So we're really excited to propose propose them to the school board tonight. Any questions? Thank you.
Code of conduct.
Oh, block.
No block.
Oh, block stuff.
Not the handbook.
Oh, that was not the handbook. Sorry.
The only, again, respect for time, the only change that I want to highlight is, so we talked about staff input in regards to program of studies. Our handbook has mirroring of both staff and students. So some of our higher level issues of things that we wanted to talk about at the building level that we're hearing from our principal advisory council, which is a liaison group Mrs. Fight and I meet with. We identified some topics and they had their own input in regards to some of those matters, and we've made some changes respectfully to that. And then the last piece, and I'll shut up for your time, is one piece that we're really proud about is one of the videos that are included in the handbook. We talk about that in day in the life of an O-Block student. Mrs. Fight shot those videos, but all of the editing was done by one of our 7th grade students. And so he did a fantastic job in meshing and merging all the various clips, doing some editing back and forth, some effects, as well as some music behind it. So props to that individual. He's done a fantastic job. We're going to continue to utilize him and his strengths and that capacity. So it was a nice opportunity to showcase one of our students' work. So,
Thanks.
For the high school, we just updated a bunch of all the faculty members. We added the link for the app. The app updated the acknowledgement form coming in. I included the attendance policy with the attendance. It listed the offense steps in the handbook, but that's also in our code of conduct, so I just cleaned that up. Very minor things as well. Just dates coming up throughout the year, just minor things. There was no major changes, just updating the dates. Yes.
Are the acknowledgement forms, can they be submitted electronically yet?
They cannot, and we want the kids to sign those themselves.
Okay.
So we have their signature on there. Those are important to us. So we want the kids to handwrite their signature on those. So that's intentional.
Code of conduct, code of conduct.
You're probably aware last year that we put a committee together and created this for the first time within the Plum Borough School District. Prior to last year, we had a number of different handbooks within each of the buildings, and the goal was to unify it. So what you see here is just some additions and some fixes within the book, and we added some verbiage in regards to the state exams and the expectation of academic integrity for the students who are taking that. Also down there, we added some one-to-one information that will help parents direct them right to the technology section of our Plum Borough School District webpage, and providing them on helpful links and other items that they can use as part of the one-to-one initiatives.
We also included the word nicotine with smoke-free schools to include the vaping devices for us as well. Mr. Loletta updated some lines with the student technology portion of it to align that, and that's just a more consistent message across the board. We added the school police to our discipline matrix, just so we're following our procedures correctly as far as when we're going to them, referring things to them and having that conversation with them.
They were added to level 2, 3, and 4 offenses because in some cases, as the board's aware, we may file charges for a summary offense, and we wanted to make sure that it's at the discretion of the building principal. The building principal is responsible for discipline, and they would make that recommendation.
But there's also procedures in place now for us. And lastly, simple, we eliminated the word administrative detention and just kept that to detention for more flexibility for our teachers and for us as well.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Move forward on the handbook.
We have 5 moving forward on the handbooks.
Yes.
Okay.
And code of conduct.
And code of conduct. Okay, Josh, thanks for waiting so long. Really appreciate it. I have to give Josh credit.
tried to find an athletic strategic plan that we could mirror ours off of, and we came up with a big book because we couldn't find that. So that's a credit to Josh, you know, that he wants to bring that forward, and I'm going to stop talking and let you go, Josh.
All right, thank you. And again, like Dr. Highland stated, you know, when I talked to some other ADs to try to get some ideas, there really were none out there. I went to the National Federation of High Schools and looked for what their idea was for a strategic plan. So this is really, you know, 18 years, this is my 18th year in this role, and I've never done this before. So there's a lot of good information in here. There's a lot of information in here. I think anytime we talk about athletics, there's a lot of things that go into athletics or being an athletic director that maybe a lot of people don't know. My friends all think all I do is, you know, watch sports all the time. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So, you know, why 3 years? I believe that Plum Athletics has some needs, that it needs some attention in some certain areas, and I feel like we got to get moving on this as soon as possible. And quite honestly, if I can't get these items we're going to talk about, or at least make an effort to get these things accomplished, then I'm not really doing my job. So I really need to, you know, I'm going to focus hard on these areas, and, you know, again, I appreciate your attention to them. So we're going to go right into the second slide. You know, anytime we talk about our programs with our coaches and our kids, we want to make sure that we're aligned with the district's vision and the mission, vision, and values of the district. So when we talk about athletics, you know, again, all these things around the district logo, committed, integrity, caring, and relentless, I mean, that is what an athlete or a coach should be focused on. So, you know, in our coaches meetings, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation, you know, we bring these things up because we want everybody to be, you know, melded together. We want our athletic programs and our education to be, you know, on the same page. And we always want to focus on doing things the right way. I think that's one of the biggest things that I talk to our coaches about is, you know, we're going to do things right because it's the right way to do it. It's not that I'm making up these things that I'm asking them to do. These are actually things that work, that they're impactful. So the 10 non-negotiables for sports parenting. I think one of the things that I like to talk about is again, you know, I go to all these events, I see what's going on in the crowd, I talk to our parents, I talk to our kids, I talk to our coaches. You know, I really want to get some of this message out to our community. That, you know, when we're and I'm a parent, I have a 6 and a 4-year-old. I'm actually the coach of this basketball team, which I'm not sure you can call basketball. But, you know, love your child no matter what. I mean, I think that's the most important thing I want our parents to know. Let the coach do their job. Be realistic about the ability of your child. Let your child have fun. You know, volunteer. I think that's one of the things when I talk with boosters, you know, we need volunteers. So we need people to help out in these programs. We need parents. You know, I'm not trying to push parents away. We need parents. We need boosters, parents, our community to all be engaged in our athletic programs to make them great. Don't relive your athletic life through your child. You know, that's an important thing. Don't compare your child's abilities or attitudes to others. You know, be grateful that they're participating in a sport. Support the whole team and see the big picture. You know, I think those are all very important things that we're going to discuss here this evening. So what we're going to talk about is the vision for Plum Athletics, what the goals are for our athletic programs, and really, you know, the most important one, how we're going to reach our goals. So our vision. You know, one of the things that I like to think about is, you know, success. This statement, I want this statement, this vision statement for athletics plastered in our locker rooms, on our athletic facilities, because it is the reality. That it'll never become, you know, success in athletics will never become more important than doing things the right way. I mean, I think that's how I open up the presentation. But when we do things the right way, athletic success will find us. So this is one of the branding opportunities, or the statements that I want to see around Plum Athletics, and I want everybody to live within it. And the question is, how do we become a premier athletic program? You know, we have to establish, you know, there is a desire for it, there's an appetite for it. I've talked to a lot of parents, a lot of kids, our staff members, that we all want to be great. And I think we all want to be great academically, we all want to be great in our athletic programs, because they are one. You know, academics and athletics are together. We want to establish a vision. We want to set collaborative goals. So we're going to talk a little bit further in the presentation about our coaches meetings, but I have a seasonal coaches meeting.
And when we talk about that, it's setting goals. You know, we try to break off into small groups. We want to set goals for our season, set goals for the year. We talk about SMART goals, being specific, measurable, attainable, recorded, and time-bounded. We want to measure our success and make course corrections for continuous improvement. I think that is any coach in the world. You know, failure is a good thing in athletics. You know, when we fail, we learn how to succeed. And so losing, failing, whatever word we want to use for that, I don't look at it as a negative. It's something that we need to happen for us to learn, you know, to move forward. So when we talk about our goals, and again, I'm probably going to talk a little faster than what I intended to. So if you have questions, please put your hand up for me. So our goals. We want programs that are student-centered. We always want to compete with integrity in class. We want to maintain our facilities that meet or exceed our competitors. We need to generate alternative revenue. We want to achieve operational excellence. I mean, one of my firm beliefs is I want to run professional events for every event we have. I don't look at one sport as different from the other. They're all the same to me. I want them all to be run the right way. And we're going to communicate effectively with everybody. I think that's one of the things that I feel like I'm not doing an excellent job of that right now, that we need to get a lot of information out, and we're trying to figure out the best way to do that. I have fought social media probably my whole life. I just have. But it's valuable. We need to have it. I need to jump on board. I'm starting to get acclimated to Twitter, which is new for me. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to get better at. But you know, I think that when we talk about this, our families need the information. Because a lot of times I'm spending a lot of time on the phone in my office answering questions. I'm thinking, geez, this information could have already been out there, and I feel like we need to do a much better job of that. So goal one. Our students deserve programs that are student-centered. I mean, they absolutely do. We have some great kids here. You know, there's some great student athletes, great kids, but we need to make sure that all the programs we offer, number one, they're safe and fun. You know, if a program isn't fun, we're not going to get returning players or returning athletes to come into it. We're not going to get people to come to those events. Opportunities. You know, again, when I talk about opportunities, it's about opportunities to learn and grow, fail and succeed. Well coached. You know, when we talk about our goals, being well coached is important. Part of my, I feel like my role is to help our coaches understand what it means to be well coached, how we communicate with kids, how we communicate with families. We want to assist athletes with talent for the next level. You know, if a child has an appetite or the talent to move on to the next level in athletics, we need to be able to help them. Not just myself, our coaches need to be able to guide them, work with our guidance department to talk to them about how they can start guiding them through the NCAA clearinghouse. We want all of our kids, and again, this is an athletic goal, but this could be a goal. We want them to feel they belong to something, that they're connected to something. Because I believe that, you know, once you do that, there's something greater that they're trying to achieve rather than just a win or a loss. We want to maximize our potential. You know, we want kids to play multiple sports. I want coaches to encourage kids to play multiple sports. Saying that you want them to play multiple sports and then scheduling a weightlifting session at the same time as the practice is telling me that you're not supportive of them doing that. So we really need to work together. You know, our coaches need to work together. I need to work with them. And we're going to talk about rebranding. You know, I think one of the things to you know, inject excitement into an athletic program is changing things a little bit. You know, just a small change here or there. And we're going to talk about, you know, the rebranding as we go further through this. Our second goal. You know, when we talk about the coaches, I think as a coach, I coach myself. We always want to look at what's working and what's not working. And we need to evaluate what we're doing. Look internally first. You know, there's too many times where coaches want to blame everybody else. But the reality is we need to look at ourselves and how we do things. My job is to help them understand, you know, what a coach, what that means to me, what it should mean to them. I think I told somebody, there's an article I read that there's very few things that mean so much to somebody being called coach. You know, there's some people that feel that it's a little bit more weight than being called doctor. No offense, Dr. Highland. You know, it is a really important thing, and we can have such an impact on these kids. Coaching education is part of goal 2. You know, there are coaching opportunities everywhere. The ASEP program, the coaching principal course,
which is a requirement in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, it's the first national requirement in the state of Pennsylvania. There have been no requirements. You could call yourself a coach and you could coach. The state of Pennsylvania now requires you to take these courses. These courses are actually pretty good. And in the beginning I heard it and I thought, you know, I've been coaching for a while, well, why do I need to take a course to learn how to coach? It's not to learn your specific sport. It's about learning how to treat kids, put yourself in a difficult situation. How do you react to that? The best programs that I've seen with this ACEP principals course is you get old coaches and new coaches in the same room, and they're able to bounce things back and forth with one another. Professional development opportunities. You know, there are coaches clinics out there, and there's quite a few of them. We sent our baseball and softball coaches to a local clinic this past weekend down in Pittsburgh. Again, you don't have to go to the state of Texas to find a good football clinic. We have one right here. There's one that's going on at State College. There's one that's going on in the city of Pittsburgh. But there are opportunities out there. The National Federation of High Schools offers free coaching education courses with specific areas for their sport, and it's a free learning tool. I like our coaches. What we did, there's online clinics through the Glacier Clinic program. So there's a way that we can pay one fee and an entire staff can utilize clinics across the country. So again, there are opportunities for our coaches to learn. We just need to show them where they can do this at. The preseason coaches meeting. You know, one of the most important things I see with that is it's a shared message to every coach. I make it clear to every coach that, you know, again, one program is not more important than the other. They are all important programs to me because we're all working with children. We all want the same things. We want to have high-achieving programs and high-achieving student athletes. We talk about, in those meetings, you know, we talk about best practices. We do talk about the vision of the district, the vision of the athletic program. But ultimately, it's really about how we treat each and every student every single day. How we treat them in practice, how we communicate with them, how I can defend certain decisions and how I can't defend them. So I try to teach them, hey, look, this is the program, this is what we can do for you, this is how you can help me, this is how I can help you. But it's a shared message. My coaches meeting started out several years ago. It was like a 2-hour meeting. And what we found out is after about 35 minutes, nobody was listening. But there's so much information.
It's not like that tonight.
Yeah, sorry. But there is so much information that I feel that is necessary, you know. But again, that's why I continually talk to our coaches. You can't get everything out in that meeting. So I'm always available to them anytime that we can help them. And a rigorous evaluation process. You know, the evaluation process begins with me helping the coaches understand how they're going to be evaluated, what they're going to be evaluated on. But my process has been I evaluate the head coach. The head coach evaluates the assistants down through the middle school. So if they have a JV coach, a varsity assistant, and a 7th and 8th grade coach in their program, that's who they're going to evaluate. It is tough, I will tell you. It is tough for a head coach to evaluate a 7th grade coach. One of the challenges at Plum is our middle school or junior high is not connected to the high school. That is a challenge. But again, some of the coaches have, at least the junior high coaches have come back to me saying that, you know, hey, head coach stopped in. We had a good talk. We meet every Sunday. So these are all things that I want to build programs. And quite honestly, when we go through the evaluation process, you know, we tell them what they're going to be evaluated on. At the end of the season, we evaluate them. But in between, I try to get 3 to 5 touch points with the coaches to talk about, you know, hey, I walked through your practice today. Saw for 15 minutes, I saw kids standing around. That's not what we're trying to do here. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. We want to see active involvement by everybody. But that just gives you an idea of my evaluation process. Goal 2, continue here. Okay, let me get my notes. Again, our students deserve to be in programs that compete with integrity in class. Coaches and student athletes are going to be held to a high standard. You know, we're going to hold them accountable for their behavior, not only in practices, on the court, on the buses. You know, anything they do, we're going to find out about it, and we're going to hold them accountable for it. When we do things outside of the district mission, vision, and values, we're going to document it. We're going to hold them accountable for what they didn't do, and we're going to try to help them do better. You know, I think any coach that's willing to give up all this time for these kids, I want to help them. I want to help guide them. That's kind of the nature of who I am.
I look at varsity coaches as program managers, and when we talk about a program manager, their job is to look at the program. 7 through 12 is the immediate program. We always want them to have their eye on what's going on at the junior high level, but they also need to have a link to the youth programs. With our junior high programs, we want to have shared terminology, some similar drills, similar things, maybe the offensive scheme, the defensive scheme, maybe a little bit, for lack of a better term, dumbed down. But we want to have a shared vision, 7 through 12, for all of our programs. Now, a program like swimming is a little challenging. We don't have a middle school swimming program, but in those cases, we do a little bit differently. But we want all of our coaches to be linked to the youth. And, we're going to have youth nights. We've been having those in basketball. I think it's been going great. Dr. Anderson, you've helped out with several of those. I think that's a wonderful link from our program to the youth programs. So we have a vested interest, down through the youth. All right, our third goal. Our students deserve facilities that compete with and or exceed our competitors' facilities. We're always focused on safety. Mr. Walsh has done an excellent job of doing a lot of things in a short amount of time for our gymnasiums, our stadium. And we need to evaluate our facilities constantly. We always need to look and see, are there areas that we're missing? We just want to make sure everybody's safe out there. Facility upgrade management. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth. To me, the non-negotiables. We have a stadium, track, and turf that need attention right now. They need, and I have possible replacement there. The reality is we need to replace them. They're at the end of their life. We have some issues with the track going on right now with it. It's basically lifting up in certain areas. So we really need to pay some attention to that. The sound systems. For those of you that have been in the gym or at the stadium, we have some issues with our sound system. Now, I'm not an expert in sound. So I have two companies coming in. The first one's coming in at the end of the week to make sure these sound systems may be appropriate. I don't know, but there's people down there constantly turning knobs and turning things up and turning things down. I don't know where it's supposed to be. So their job is to come out, check them. I'm going to take pictures of it, and I'm hopeful that'll improve some areas. But we really need to focus on that. We need to have a focus on our sound. How we're amplifying things. We have graduation at the stadium. And graduation always seems, at least the one that I've been through, sounds a lot better than Mr. Seneca announcing the football game. So we need to look at that and see what we're doing, see what we need to do differently and make recommendations about, where we may need to go with that. Again, to continue with our facilities, to compete or exceed with our competitors, the negotiables. So we have some negotiable things on here. But the reality is there's a lot of schools out there with multiple fields, multiple synthetic turf fields. Kiski, Gateway, Fox Chapel, Woodland Hills, Penn Trafford. I could go down the list for a long time. Norwin, Franklin Regional. I saw their athletic director at our 9th grade game today. They have one, but their second phase of their capital improvement is adding a second field at Franklin Regional. Mars, Bethel Park, Mount Lebanon, Upper St. Clair, Peters Township, Seneca Valley. The one school that I see that we're, comparing ourselves with academically, South Fayette, I think that may be the only one I found that they didn't have multiple fields. But the reality is, I think in order to make our athletic programs to take it to the next level, we need to create places for these kids to be able to practice. It's obviously something that can be contentious, but if we create a and when I say multi-use, I mean multi-use. I mean our phys ed programs, I mean our phys ed classes, our marching band, community groups. But the reality is when you create a synthetic turf field, if you don't light it, you're not getting the most use out of it. So that's something that has to be considered. Scoreboards, again, our scoreboards at the stadium, Gym 2 and O Block, are functional. They're working. O Block, thank goodness we got that one it's in a good place right now. But at some point, some of these things go out. We can't even get parts for certain scoreboards anymore. Scoreboards also provide an opportunity for advertisements and sponsorship. So that's something that I want to have in this presentation that we need to consider. Okay, yeah, again, the negotiables. Our tennis courts, we have some significant cracks going through our tennis courts. We can do some things to fill in those cracks, to Basically, they make a red and a green putty that you put in the cracks to fill them in. It looks pretty uniform. I've done that at another district I was at. But we need to consider that because as, yeah, I'm sorry.
I think that those are, you better check, I think that there's a warranty on those. We did those not too long ago.
On the tennis courts?
Yes. I think it was like 14 or early 15, we resurfaced those tennis courts.
Okay.
So there might be a warranty on them somewhere.
Okay.
I'll see it.
Thank you.
I never knew if I could throw anything away, because I never knew what was supposed to happen, so I just have it all, so I'll look.
Okay, thank you.
We talked about
I never knew what I was allowed to do with any of it.
Dome over the tennis courts, we even talked about the.
No kidding.
Yeah, to prolong their life.
Wow. I mean, it's a beautiful tennis, I mean, they're used a lot too. You know, in the evenings, I see a lot of adults out there using
No,
it,
we
so
spent a good bit of money, but I'll see if I can find it.
that's wonderful, thank you. You know, our fitness facilities. So one of the things that we see downstairs in our phys ed program is I've been talking to, I know Mr. Zarmak and the high school administration about updating some of our fitness equipment down there. We're gonna get a lot of the pieces of equipment fixed, so we're gonna spend some money to get, there's a couple treadmills that aren't working correctly, but we're gonna do some things to improve it, but the reality is, what you see anymore in a lot of, you know, outstanding weight rooms are these multi-purpose stack machines where you can do squats, bench, you know, pretty much every exercise can be done on one machine. So that's what we're gonna look at. I have a couple different fitness companies looking at the layout of our current fitness facility and how we can change it and how we can get the most out of it. One of the things that we don't have is a speed and conditioning area, you know, within that fitness facility. So we've got some ideas. I don't want to really bring up where we're looking for those right now, but that's another area we want to look to address. Locker room facilities, our athletic training room. I think one of the administrative hallway, I think getting the athletic training room out of that would be probably advantageous to a lot of you. I think there's kids running through there, but we need to look at that area as well. And, you know, a study area, you know, a film study area. We recently we have been using Huddle. It's a video sharing platform we've been purchasing it for maybe, let's say, 5 sports. We recently purchased it for every sport. It's great to have it, but you have to be able to break down film with your team in order for it to be that educational component that's valuable. So I'd like to create an area where we can, you know, a centralized area where the kids can go with their team, you know, we'll have to schedule it to watch film. Myself growing up, film wasn't a big part of our learning process, but it's such a huge part of the world of athletics today. So I think that's going to be very helpful and impactful to the kids. Our fourth goal, generate alternative revenue. So the current state of alternative revenue, so those of you that have been in our stadium or in our gym, you can see message boards down there. The message boards are not technically ours at this point. So there was an agreement signed, I believe in 2017, it's a 10-year agreement with Side Effects. One of the things that, you know, I see all these advertisements going up, but I'm not seeing any revenue coming back. So I reached out to Side Effects. So how it works is, it's a 50-50 split of all advertisements, but the district has to pay for those message boards first. So once the message boards are paid for, then we start to see some revenue from that 50-50 split. They get 50%, we get 50%. They do all the work in terms of gaining those advertisements.
It wasn't that hard. They called me and asked for $4,000, and I said, okay. So $2,000 of it went to them.
Yeah, $2,000 went to them.
And I kept saying, can I just give it to the district, but I had to do it to them.
Yeah. Well, the challenge with that is our football stadium, we are negative 5,000 on that. So we're getting close to that one. The positive thing is our main gym, we are about 16,000 in revenue that we should be seeing. One of the challenges with that is we've been having some issues with the message board. So we've had a lift up there. Part of the issue with it, we have to, I don't want to say maintain it, but we have to correct the issue. For right now, we're not having the internet connectivity to that message board that's physically in the gym. We do have a $16,000 check sitting out there when we do get it corrected. So that's the push right now, is get that fixed immediately so we can start seeing some of that money. But you know, we are getting some rental fees. You know, when outside groups use our facilities, we are generating some money that way. But I think that, you know, the thing that we're going to talk about with Policy 707 is you're not, from your local groups, you're not going to generate enough money necessarily to pay for even to run the facility. There's custodial costs. So we are generating some revenue. We could be generating more. What is being missed, I believe, naming rights. Again, people have to be willing to put their name on something, willing to give us money to do that. Sponsorships, we're going to talk about some different opportunities presented to us from some vendors that would create a school store, which again would create some revenue for us. But really, I think that what we're missing is the naming of our certain areas. We put it out there, this is what it's going to cost to name the football field, this is what it's going to cost to name the stadium, this is what it's going to cost to name the floor, the locker room. I mean, you name it, you can name it all. And when we talk about policy 913.1, if you click on that exemplar example, it's Chambersburg High School. It's basically like a shopping list for naming pretty much anything in their district. Now, I did reach out to Chambersburg. They haven't seen the amount of money that I would hope that they would see from this. Let's see if I can pull that up. But their AD said that they have some things out there right now that they think is going to change the tide with that. So that they've gotten some money that's been not necessarily minimal, but they're getting some over it. But again, something like what Chambersburg is doing is what we would like to do here. How do we advertise? What is our facility worth to people? We need to aggressively go after local companies. Local companies, semi-local. A lot of our people in our district may not work at a business in our district, but they work somewhere. So trying to get them to get us in touch with maybe the leadership at their company that we can talk to them and ask. One of the things that I've heard from people is, you just have to ask. And that's not something that I'm real good at. I'm not very good at asking for help. But to be quite honest, I'll ask for money, and I'll ask for money to help our programs and help these kids, because I think that's where I get. If it's for me, I have an issue with it, but if it's for kids, I have no issue asking. When we talk about policy 707, Ms. Sedlak, we met recently. We're going to make a few revisions to policy 707. The policy itself is not a bad policy. It's a policy that PDE, it's pretty much right in line with where we see other policies. It's really the how we're implementing the policy. We have to define our groups. So one of the things that Mr. Walsh and I have been talking about, we have a lot of different options. We put an exemplar down there for Penn Hills. I just talked to Franklin Regional's AD. They have basically priced people out of renting the facilities. He said their stadium is $2,000, I think, an hour to rent. Obviously on television, so that could be wrong, but it's like $2,000 to rent one of the facilities where, we don't want to go so high that nobody rents it. We want to come in the middle somewhere where it's advantageous to us, it's advantageous to them. But in my former district, we put together a price structure that I thought was a little bit high, but guess what, they needed the facility. Kiskey's a good example. Kiskey has two side-by-side fields, a standalone soccer field and then their football stadium. And he's generated over $100,000 in 2 years renting out those two fields alone. One of the PA West Soccer Club, I think, is one of his primary renters. Policy 707, we need to define our groups as the first step. The second step is we need to build people. We got to set it up, and we got to hold fast that everybody. If you want to use our facility and you fall in these certain groups, so you're going to be charged. So that is going to be a challenge. The use of school facilities, that person housing that, if we get where I think we can get with this, it's going to be a busy department. It is, and they're going to need help on that. My department's going to help. I know Mr. Walsh's department's going to help. But we need to get there, because right now we're not seeing much revenue from that. We are seeing some, but not much. When we talk about alternative revenue, so we have met with two vendors, Adidas and Under Armour so far, about doing all school deals. So when we do all school deals, I am meeting with Nike in probably less than a week. I think it's going to be next Monday that we're going to meet. Nike is new. They haven't really done high schools before. This is kind of new for them. Adidas and Under Armour have. So we have some proposals. What those proposals will do for us, both of them are about a 40% savings on your uniform purchases. So we're going to save money when we need to purchase uniforms.
They don't put advertisement on uniforms?
I don't believe the National Federation allows you to put an advertisement on a uniform, but I can check on that. I don't think you're allowed to. Because I know that there's it's a 2-inch, you can put a flag on it, but that's the only thing, I haven't really seen that advertised. On AAU and club uniforms, I've seen that, but I can check on that. For some reason, I think it's prohibited, but I can check. It'll save us money on uniforms. We'll get, no matter which company we go with. Now, I haven't heard Nike's proposal yet, but Adidas and Under Armour, we'll get some free apparel for our coaches. I think one of the things that I want to see our coaches identify with Plum. I want to, when they go to a game and they just have a black shirt on, who is that guy? You know what I mean? I want them to identify with Plum, and this is a Plum coach that is coaching this team. So one of the things we're going to try to do for them is get some apparel specifically for them. And again, it's a step towards branding our athletic program. If we end up going with Adidas or Under Armour, right now, Under Armour, I believe, in my opinion, they have a better product. We've gone through, we've gone through both proposals. Adidas gives you a little bit more money for signage. Under Armour will give us money for signage. And when I talk about signage, I'm talking about getting, branding down in the locker room area, and that hallway that connects the pool to, the fitness facility. At our stadium, we want to see Plum athletics all over the place. I want to see positive messages all over the place. And a district-wide store. So both of these companies, and I'm sure Nike is a very similar boat. You can set up a district-wide store where we're going to provide maybe apparel to our coaches, but a parent can buy that same shirt. They can buy that same sweatshirt and make it a good product that people want to wear. Branding of the athletic program. So I believe what I'm suggesting is what Plum the colors used to be. So I'm not sure if I could be wrong there, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to change our purple, or no, I'm sorry, our gold. Change from Vegas gold to like the LSU varsity gold. Again, it's something to create excitement for our programs. I want to really standardize our color and logo. We have a lot of different logos out there. We're going to go through a couple of the options here on the presentation, but we want to get when somebody, and we want to put something on our website that says if you want to put Plum on something, you're going to have to use one of these 3 options. If you want to make a Plum shirt for the youth lacrosse program, we would like you to use these colors when you make these shirts. We really want to try to get everybody on board, the elementary kids, the whole way up through the high school, and then even into the parents in the community. We do want to look at potentially changing the Mustang. We've looked at some different options, but when we do that, we're going to get input from the staff, from coaches, from our students, from administration, from our school board, from our parents and our community leaders, because the Mustang head looks very similar to the Denver Bronco head. I've checked. I believe we're able to use it because there's one less part of the mane. But again, it's not a bad logo. But again, if we're going to look at changing, let's take a look at it. Let's maybe that's another option for the Mustang. We have the one we have, and then maybe there's another option out there. Excuse me. Signage in our locker rooms. I already talked about this. Gymnasium doors. So those of you that have come in the main entrance here to the high school, that graphic that you see, I'd like to do something like that on our gymnasium doors. When you walk into the gym, Plum Pride, whatever it may be, it's something down there that you're walking into a Plum facility. Dress it up a little bit for security reasons that you can see out, that you can't see in it. So I think it would be a nice thing to add. But there's opportunities for signage around our tennis court. Again, you may be able to get a sponsor for it, but I just want to see Plum tennis courts, Plum Mustangs. I want to see this all over the place. I want to really try to amplify what we currently have. And again, I want it to encompass the entire program. I think in order, the schools that have had success with branding, they've really they've gotten it down into the youth programs. Youth programs, the athletes and the parents tend to buy a ton of apparel. So if we can, push this out and have people buy into it, I think it would be great for our entire community.
Hey Josh, I know you've given a brief. If you could just speed up just a tiny bit,
okay,
that'd be great.
All right. So
I know it kills him because he's worked on it for 3 months.
It's been quite a while.
Sometimes there's a regression.
Okay.
Diminishing returns.
So this is logo option 1. So obviously it does look very similar to the Pitt script.
Yeah, I like it already.
Yeah. probably some Penn State folks in here that may not like that.
Oh, here we go.
But again, it's an option. Now, the other options you're gonna see aren't too different. Here's option 2. Option 2 just puts a horseshoe in the U and in the P. Again, just something different to create excitement for our kids and our community. There's the Mustang head with the same script. So I'm going to go into goal 5.
Why don't we let the kids design it?
What I would like to do with those 3 options is give them to the kids and have them choose which one they would like. Again, when you brand a program, it's not always one thing. You can have multiple things. You can. It doesn't have to be one. If we're going to, and honestly, that's probably not a bad idea. I mean, I want the kids to have ownership into them. I want them to feel good about it and be excited about it. I have shown this to a couple of kids, but not obviously the entire student body. So, again, that's a great suggestion. I do want them to have buy-in to it because I want them to wear it and be proud to wear it.
We could fight whether or not it looks like fit or not fit, but what do we care? I mean, we care, but the kids, they're the ones that have to wear it. They're the ones that are proud Mustangs, and we have to pass that down.
I agree.
I think if you let them vote.
Well, maybe that's the Mustang and the script, you know what I mean? But I will say that talking to some vendors with uniforms, I've actually done a uniform with that script on it. And because really our script for our uniforms is all over the place. We have block lettering, I just wanted to try to standardize it. So, but again, putting it out to the kids is a great idea. So goal 5, our students deserve programs that role model operational excellence. So our facilities, we want to make sure that we have the best facilities that we can offer, that things work, that when we come into a venue that it's going to be ready to go. I want to have an emergency operating procedure for every venue. So one of the challenges here is we use Larry Mills Park, we use Boys Park, we use the PSBA fields. So every facility we have has a different challenge. So we're going to develop, and we're pretty much already almost through that at this point. What's going to happen in an emergency in those places, because I think the coaches need to know that. I think parents need to feel comfortable sending their kids to Larry Mills to play a soccer game. If something bad happens, there's bad weather, what are we going to do? I have the utilization of site managers. So, there are going to be times where, I may not be able to physically be here. So training a site manager to handle events when I can't physically be here, whether it be, family related, whatever it may be. It would be very helpful. In my old district, I did have site managers. I used them sparingly because, quite honestly, I try to be at as many things as I can possibly be at. But I think it's important to have somebody that are representing the school at an event. And site managers would be trained by me. They would do all the things that I do on a typical game night, except maybe run the clock and announce, which we're going to try to move away from that. But again, I think it would be valuable. But again, that position to me is a high quality position, and I need to be able to pay them a reasonable amount to do that. The middle school and the junior high athletic coordinator. So, again, I mentioned it before. One of the challenges is O-Block's about a 15-minute ride in the car for me from here. To get there and get back for a 5:30, for a team showing up at 5 o'clock here at the high school is very hard.